to the families of those who tragically lost their lives during last month's for winning the Windward Islands Cricket Tournament for the 4th consecutive time. From the Government Information Service, I am Geraldine Bisset Joseph reporting.
The Governor-General's throne speech outlined the government's agenda for the upcoming fiscal year. Among the things that was spoken about were health issues and health reform, as well as judicial reform and education policies and programs, and also interest in agriculture, what is going to happen with our tourism sector. There were a lot of things that the Governor-General touched on during her throne speech yesterday. As you can see from the chamber, we have almost all the members of Parliament for the House of Assembly in place at this point in time. Prime Minister, the Honorable Alan M. Chasney, is in the chamber along with the Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, Honorable Philip J. Pear. We are awaiting the arrival of the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the Honorable Leon Theodore John. She will be along shortly, but as we're still on the subject of the throne speech, GIS, we always make it a point to keep everyone informed, and we do have another clip from the Governor-General's throne speech. Let's take that in now.
The passing of Sir Derek Walcott and Sir Dwight Venner was a great loss to our nation. We should and honor their memory. Their lives have been woven inextricably into the tapestry that is St. Lucia. They brought renown to our country nationally and internationally, and serve as testimony to the reality that, small though we may be, we are a phenomenal people. In their distinct ways, Sir Derek and Sir Dwight are models to be emulated as we endeavor to contribute to the development of a new St. Lucia. This excellence is demonstrated time and time again in other spheres of life in St. Lucia. In this regard, I take this opportunity to congratulate our under-15 young men for again winning the Windward Islands Cricket Tournament. To repeat such a feat for a 4th time is testimony to their hard work and dedication, and that of their management and coaching team. Gentlemen, you have made us proud. Your success reaffirms that as a people, we can aspire and we can achieve.
Her Excellency Sir K. Dwight Venner. Also in the throne speech yesterday, Her Excellency touched on inclusive and equitable quality education. One of the policies moving forward would be an education for democratic citizenship program. What that program will do will focus on the soft skills and on national pride, and it will be introduced in the primary and secondary schools at the beginning of the new academic year in 2017. Under education as well, Her Excellency outlined the government's emphasis on e-learning. There will be a greater emphasis on information communication technologies in the classroom moving forward with this government. Also, our children, our students with special needs will be getting attention as the government intends to develop a national policy on special needs to allow equitable opportunities for all St. Lucians. In terms of accreditation for educational institutions, the government intends to bring before the House the Accreditation Bill and the Caribbean Accreditation Authority for Medicine and Other Health Professionals Bill. In her throne speech, Her Excellency revealed that those bills will come before Parliament very early in this new session of the second Parliament, the second session of the 11th Parliament. We are awaiting the arrival of the Honourable Speaker of the House of Assembly. And since we're still speaking about Her Excellency's throne speech, let's see.
Safety nets. Mr. President, Madam Speaker, we cannot speak about building a new St. Lucia if we do not embrace all our citizens in this effort. In order to do so, we must inspire confidence, induce hope, and above all, adhere to the principles of equity, social justice, and empowerment. This year, my government will reform and nationalize the public assistance program so that we have a leaner, more efficient, administered at the household level. No longer will support be automatic.
And the Sergeant-at-Arms is in the chamber with the mace. And the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Honorable Leon Theodore John, is in place. And this signals the beginning of this parliamentary session. We now go to the chamber floor.
Let us pray.
Let us begin our prayer with a quotation from the Book of Wisdom, chapter 6, verse 24. A great number of wise men and women is the safety of the nation and the world. Almighty God, we implore you to inspire this legislature of men and women whom you have called to serve, to seek your wisdom in all the affairs of this nation, so that all our people may make progress in the path of justice, peace, and charity. Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding. With thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, to do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public will, peace, and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all forevermore. Amen.
Election of Deputy Speaker. Members, please elect your deputy. announcement by Madam Speaker. I am in receipt of an apology communication from the Honourable Member for Grosley, informing that he would be here with us today, albeit a little late. I am also in receipt of an apology from the Honourable Member for Castries North, informing that he will be joining. I have recently returned from the United Kingdom, where we were invited by the CPA UK branch further to the meeting they had here, the post-election meeting here, and the invitation was at their behest, and we, myself, the member for Soufrière, Fosse-Jacques, and the deputy clerk, we spent one very informative and educative week at Westminster and had a very fruitful meeting. It was proved very insightful and educative. Members, I am hoping that all of you are in receipt of this small booklet that I put together. It was done primarily, as I stated within, that it was done primarily for the benefit of new members. That being said, it sets out the procedure that is as mandated by the Constitution and the standing orders as regards the motion, the procedure for the debate. That is the budget motion and the appropriation bill. I would like members to pay particular attention to the standing orders and the order and what that means. Other issue that I need to bring to members' attention, I am aware this is the budget debate where all members will speak and appeal to their respective constituents. Be minded that you are bound by the standing orders of the House as to what permits, whilst I am willing to allow flexibility of members in terms of some flexibility, a lot more flexibility at this budget debate motion and the motion. I want members to understand that at least we need to keep within the standards and decorum of the House, that which is expected of this Honourable House. And I need members to commit to that. So members will be given some measure of latitude, a lot more perhaps than has been allowed, but measure of and that, please. Further, another issue that comes up a lot during that time is with respect to interruptions. I would like members to pay particular attention to the standing orders, particular Standing Order 34. The difference between a point standing on a point of clarification and also that of elucidation. Okay? Statements by ministers. Honourable Member for Miku South, Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, the Public Service, and Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 28 of 2017, District Court Tariff of Cost Rules. Statutory Instrument Number 29 of 2017, Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Sittings of the Court Amendment Rules. Statutory Instrument Number 31 of 2017, Extradition, Designation of Commonwealth Countries, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 32 of 2017, Legal Profession, Eligibility, Nadia Nicole Evet Aline, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 33 of 2017, Legal Profession, Eligibility, Rwana K. Athena Gillian Campbell, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 34 of 2017, Finance Administration Act, Resolution of the Parliament to borrow on lending of the St. Lucia Air and Seaport Authority, extension of the breasting dolphin berth. Statutory Instrument Number 35 of 2017, St. Lucia Parliament Proclamation proroguing Parliament. Statutory Instrument Number 36 of 2017, St. Lucia Parliament Appointment of Session of Parliament. Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure for 2017-2018 and Economic and Social Review of 2016.
Honourable Member for Choiseul and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for commerce, industry, enterprise development.
Standing in my name, Statutory Instrument Number 30 of 2017, Price Control Amendment Number 5, Order.
Reports from committees. Honourable Member for Miku South, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Service, Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, yesterday we had the meeting of the Finance Standing Committee, and I thought the Honourable House of Assembly do adopt the report of the Standing Finance Committee on the estimates of expenditure in the sum of $1,513,652,200 for the financial year 2017-2018. And Madam Speaker, there were no amendments.
Motions. Honourable Minister, Member for Miku South, Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, Public Service, Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that the Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow by means of advances sums not exceeding $55 million from commercial banks for a period of 6 months from the date hereof, which sum shall be charged upon and paid out of the consolidated fund. Whereas as provided by Section 38(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that the Minister of Finance may, by resolution of Parliament, borrow money from a bank or other financial institution by means of advances to an amount not exceeding in the aggregate the sum specified in the resolution to meet current requirements, and as such, resolution shall not have effect for any period exceeding 6 months. And whereas it is further provided by Section 38(2) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, the power conferred on the Minister of Finance to borrow money by means of advances from a bank may be exercised by means of a fluctuating overdraft. And whereas it is further provided by Section 42(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that all debt charges for which the government is liable shall be charged upon and paid out of the consolidated fund. And whereas the Minister of Finance deems it necessary to borrow by means of advance as follows: $2 million. The Bank of Canada, EC, $2.8 million. First Caribbean International Bank, $4 million EC dollars. Bank of Nova Scotia, $6 million EC dollars. First National Bank, St. Lucia Limited, $2.5 million. And the Bank of St. Lucia, $37.5 million. Be it resolved that the Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow by means of advances sums not exceeding $55 million from commercial banks for a period of 6 months from the date hereof, which sums shall be charged upon and paid out of the consolidated fund. So, Madam Speaker, this is a standard document that comes to the House every 6 months. This does not constitute new borrowing. This is really the financing that is in place to be able to cover the government's overdraft facility. So it only is to help us with our cash flow exercise, and I hope it meets with the approval of the House, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, Minister for Finance to borrow by means of advances sums not exceeding $55 million from commercial banks for a period of 6 months from the date hereof, which sum shall be charged upon and paid out of the consolidated fund. Honourable members, the question is that Parliament authorises the Minister for Finance to borrow by means of advances sums not exceeding $55 million from commercial banks for a period of 6 months from the date hereof, which sums shall be charged upon and paid out of the consolidated fund. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Member for Miko South, Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, Public Service, Leader of Government Business.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that the Honourable House of Assembly do adopt the report of the Standing Finance Committee on the estimates of expenditure for the financial year 2017-2018 in the sum of $1,513,652,200 as a charge against the Consolidation Fund and other funds of the State of St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this esteemed House now resolves to debate and approve government proposals for the revenue and expenditure estimates for the fiscal year 2017-2018. My presentation to this Honourable House will include brief summary of the 2016-17 performance and an outline of the budget proposals for the fiscal year 2017. There was a marked improvement in the fiscal position of the central government, which was reflected in a narrowing of the fiscal deficit from a target of 3.2% of GDP in the budget to an estimated 1.4% of GDP. This performance was attributed to a reduction of $123,300,000 in total expenditure from a target of $1.426 billion to $1.302 billion for the year. Total revenue and grants also declined by $56.45 million to reach $1.107 billion. Based on these developments, the primary surplus improved significantly to reach 2.3% of GDP, compared to a forecast of 1% of GDP in the 2016-2017. So it means, in essence, Madam Speaker, that we saw an improvement in the revenues versus the expenditures of the country. At $1.107 billion, total revenues and grants fell short of the approved estimate by $56.45 million, or 5%, primarily as a result of lower grant receipts recorded for the fiscal year. Recurrent revenue increased marginally by $4 million, or 0.4% of the approved estimates. Tax revenue recorded a $13.1 million surplus over its target of $945.7 million. This reflected robust performance in collections from the income tax collections, from corporations, excise tax on imports, and import duty and property tax. It's important for me at this point also, Madam Speaker, to really thank the staff of Inland Revenue, who continue to work in very mediocre conditions for this outstanding performance last year. This reflected robust performance in collections from both the income tax collections from the corporate excise tax on imports, import duty, and property tax. Collections from the non-tax revenue category stood at $91.9 million, falling short of the $8.2 million, or 8.3% compared to the projection of the fiscal year 2016-2017. The underperformance of this category was primarily as a result of the lower than anticipated receipts from the CIP, which was partially offset by the receipt of the payout from the catastrophic risk insurance facility. As you remember, we had Hurricane Matthew, and we were able to receive some $10 million. There was a similar decline in grant receipts as the amounts expected from the donor agencies did not materialize. Madam Speaker, it is worth noting that the increase in recurrent revenue was offset by a 44.8% shortfall in grant receipts resulting from donor. Preliminary data reveals that recurrent expenditure is estimated to have recorded an outturn of $1.088 billion, which is equivalent to 98.9% of the approved budget. Spending on all major categories remained broadly in line with the estimates, except for goods and services, which exceeded the budgeted amount by $1.8 million. In the case of wages and salaries, the total outlay on personal expenses was in line with the budget, although expenditure on pension obligations exceeded the approved estimates by $8 million. Spending on transfers was lower than budgeted, resulting in a saving of $10 million, of which $3.3 million was applied to settle outstanding liabilities to the OECS Drug Service for medical supplies. Total interest payments on public debt is estimated to have amounted to $165.7 million, which was $4.7 million below the projection from the year. This was primarily as a result of lower level of disbursements being made on some loans from multinational and bilateral agencies. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, the cause of that decline is because the thing that continues to cause us grief, which is the implementation of our capital programs. And some of the projects that were due to start did not start. And as a result of them not starting, we did not have to pay the debt for them. So while on one hand there is a savings, but it's something that we must be mindful of and we must pay attention to in terms of the implementation of our capital projects. Capital spending was again seriously affected by the delay in receipt of some grant funds, as well as delays in implementation of capital projects for various reasons. Overall, capital expenditure is estimated to have achieved a utilization rate of 65.9%. So that's the number that we have to focus on. And unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the best that we have done was about 72%. But on average, it has been between 66 and 65% of implementation. The 2016-17 budget, as at $214.9 million, capital expenditure was below budget by $111 million and $41.9 million lower than the outturn for the corresponding period in 2015. So what that means is that we were below budget by $111 million in terms of what was projected. But in relation to what the actual outturn was, we were only $41.9 million short. So again, this is a significant amount of money that could be circulating into the economy that's not. And this is something that must stop, and we must become better implementers of our capital programs. In 2017-2018 budget forecast, a modest improvement in the revenue growth and an expanded capital program in support of stimulating economic activity. And that's only going to happen, Madam Speaker, if the efforts of the government to improve implementation, which is when we talk about re-engineering of the civil service, this is specifically what we're talking about, because the structures and processes we currently have in place have been failing the people of St. Lucia, and more importantly, failing the people of St. Lucia, but also being an inhibitor from the government in being able to implement its programs. The budget proposes expenditure amounting to $1.513 billion, inclusive of refunds and principal repayments of $124.5 million, so meaning in repaying loans that we have. At this level, the budget targets a primary deficit of 1.1% of GDP and an overall deficit of 4.7% GDP. Total expenditure, excluding refunds and principal repayments, is estimated at $1.379 billion, while total revenue and grants are projected at $1.158 billion. When taken together, this results in a projected overall deficit of $220.9 million, which is equivalent to the 4.7% of GDP. To this figure, a further $124.5 million for principal repayments is added to arrive at the total financing needs of $345.4 million. The financing needs will be met from the following sources: disbursement of $84.7 million from loans already contracted with our bilateral and multilateral development partners to fund part of our capital expenditure program. $50 million will be in treasury bills and $208 million in the form of bonds. The draft estimates projects total revenue and grants at $1.158 billion, representing an increase of $50.4 million over the preliminary outturn for the fiscal year 2016-2017, of which some is attributed to the projected increase in grants and receipts. Inflows from recurrent revenue are projected to increase by $22.1 million to reach $1.073 billion for the fiscal year. This represents an increase of 2.1% over the revised estimates or outturn for the preceding year. The increase stems from an impact of the revenue enhancement measures, of efficiencies in tax collections from the main tax sources, a more robust performance from Citizenship by Investment program, as well as the anticipated improvement in economic activity for the fiscal year 2017 and 2018. The following illustrates the relative contributions by the revenue tax type. The total projected recurrent revenue for 2017-2018 comprises of $958 million, or 89.3% of tax revenue, and $115.4 million in non-tax revenue. Tax revenue is forecast to increase marginally in comparison to the outturn of fiscal year 2016-2017, while non-tax revenue is expected to increase by 25% or $23.5 million compared to the revised estimate of 2016-2017.
Honorable Prime Minister. Yes, sir. I've just noticed that you don't have the rostrum, and this is a much needed thing at this point, so please bear. Apologies, sir. You should be a little more comfortable with that now.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As you'll see, I'm very accustomed to having to accommodate. The following table represents an itemized analysis, expected revenue outcome for 2017-2018 compared to 2016-17 revised estimates. Income tax for individuals last year finished, or is estimated to finish, at $106.1 million. And in our estimates, we are projecting $104.8 million, which is a decline of minus 1.2%. And we will be making some announcements later as to why we think that that's going to happen. Income tax corporations, the preliminary outturn million, or minus 9.5%. And this is preliminary because last year's revenue number included a sum from a company that had not paid and paid last fiscal year. And obviously that's not going to be a recurrent issue, so there will be a decline this year in the absolute amount of money. Income tax withholdings, we're expecting to be increased by 9.6%. VAT, obviously because of the decline in the rate and the benefit to the people of St. Lucia, we're expecting a decline of 10%, which will be from $336.5 million to $302.9 million. Import duties are expected to increase slightly. Service charge increase slightly. Excise tax will increase by 19.2%. Property tax will decline by minus 4%. Other taxes will increase by 27, or tax revenues will increase by 27.9%, which is from 69.4 million to 88 million. Licenses will decline by minus 13, largely in due because once you have got the renewal of the driver's license there, and we don't see that rush, and so there will be a slow uptake moving forward. The CIP revenue, we're expecting to go from 5.9 million to $43 million, which will be an increase of 624%. And non-tax revenue, other non-tax revenues will decline by almost 17%. Taxes on income and profits are $263.74 million, up by 8.3 million, or 13.6% above the approved estimates of 2016-2017. This is mainly attributed to the expected increase in revenues from corporation tax resulting from improved corporate profitability. The projection for the main items under this category are as follows. The revenue from income tax for corporations is expected to generate $89.6 million. For the fiscal year 2017-2018, representing a 13% increase above the budgeted amount of 2016-17, but a 9.5% decrease compared to the outturn for 2016 and 2017. So in essence, that's telling you what exactly had happened. They had not projected that that corporation was going to put that revenue in. It did, so it exceeded its amount in the outturn for the year. Revenue from income tax for individuals has been maintained at just slightly under the level achieved in 2016-2017 at 104.8 million, and the projection reflects a 1.3% decrease in comparison to 2016 and 2017. Income tax arrears projected at 42.9 million, up by 3.8 million from an outturn of 39.2 million last financial year. The tax amnesty program is expected to positively influence the revenue outcome of this line. Taxes on international trade, which is customs duties, are projected to grow by 5.8% to reach 463.7 million in 2017-2018, which is up from the 446.3 million in 2016-2017. This revenue category accounts for 43.2% of the recurrent revenue and is expected to benefit from the impact of revenue enhancement measures to be implemented during the course of the fiscal year. The revenue enhancement measures programmed in the budget are expected to yield an additional 34 million, of which 7 million is earmarked for the Tourism Authority and 12 million for the establishment of a sinking fund. As members will remember, we increased the tax at the airport, and there's two sets of taxes that have been increased. One that will be going towards the airport refurbishment, and the second one are monies that are going to be allocated specifically for the Tourism Authority, and the other part allocated to reestablish a sinking fund for the government. Of the total amount to be collected from taxes on international trade transaction, 114.8 million is expected to come from import duty, 72.2 million from service charge, and 104.2 million from excise tax, and 28 million from the airport tax. VAT from international trade transactions, which is customs VAT, is projected to yield 139.2 million in 2017-18, representing a drop of 27.8 million, or 17% compared to the 2016-2017 budget estimate. Taxes on domestic goods and services are expected to generate 219.1 million in revenue, down by 22 million, or 9.1% compared to the approved estimates for the fiscal year 2016-2017. The decline is attributed to the 2.5% reduction in VAT. The value-added tax, IRD, from the domestic sales and services is projected to decrease by 25.3 million, or 13.4%, to reach 163.6 million in 2017-18. Receipts from this source account for 74.7% of the revenue from this category. The 2017-2018 budget proposal forecasts non-tax revenues totaling 115.4 million, a 25.6% increase from the 91.9 million collected in 2016-2017. The main contributor to this increase is the inflow from the Citizenship by Investment program. The following are the major components of non-tax revenues and their expected performances in the 2017-18 budget proposal as compared to the end of 2016-2017. Licenses, receipts from licenses are projected to generate a total of 26.4 million, reflecting a decrease of 4.3 million, or 14%, below the revised estimates of the previous financial year. The decrease is influenced by the reduction in motor vehicle registration license fees and the usual decline occurring after the spike at the end of the triennium for the driver's license. Fees and fines and forfeitures. Revenues from fees, fines, and forfeitures is expected to yield an additional 38.6 million to reach 73.6 million for the new financial year. At this level, the projection represents a 41.1% increase over the outturn for fiscal year 2016-2017. and is influenced by the higher revenue intake anticipated from the CIP fees, as well as the increased inflows from in-transit fees for the higher cruise ship arrivals of 708,217 passengers. Congratulations, Minister of Tourism. Citizenship by investment fee of $43 million. The receipts from this program is the main item anticipated under the fees. Fines and forfeitures category are expected to amount to $43 million, although receipts from this revenue line performed below expectation in 2016 and 2017. It is anticipated that the program will yield an additional $37 million, as the number of applicants to the program are expected to increase in line with the recent changes made to the programs, and we've already been seeing that. Inflows of capital revenue from the sale of assets are projected to be lower than the previous budget, when some $25 million was included for the sales of lands in Choiseul. In the 2017-18 budget estimates, capital revenue of $7.4 million is projected from the sale of the assets, use of revolving fund established as part of the shelter development project, and PROUD. Total grant disbursements in fiscal year 2017-2018 are projected to decline by $9.8 million, or 10.1%, compared to the approved estimates of $97.2 million for the fiscal year 2016-2017. A total of $87.4 million is anticipated, which constitutes 7.5% of the total resources to fund the budget, and it is expected to finance 24.1% of the government's capital program. The 2017-18 budget estimates proposes an increase of $87.4 million, or 6.1% above the approved estimates for 2016-17, to reach $1.513 billion. Relative to the preliminary outturn for 2016-2017, the proposed budget reflects an increase of $210 million, or 16.2%. Of the $1.513 billion being proposed as a total expenditure, Madam Speaker, or 76% is allocated to meet recurrent expenses, up by $51.2 million, or 4.7% over the approved estimates for the preceding year. When compared to the 2016-2017 preliminary outturn, the outlay for 2016, 2017, and 2018 represent an increase of $63.5 million, or 5.8%. The increase reflects significant upward adjustments to cater for increases in wages and salaries, transfers, and goods and services. Wages and salaries are projected to increase by 2.8% from 2016-2017. Approved estimates of $476.9 to $490.1 million for the new fiscal year. Expenses relating to retiring benefits, salary increments. A sum of $81.9 million has been allocated for retiring benefits, compared to $74.9 million in the 2016-2017 budget. When compared to the preliminary outturn of 2016-2017, the projected outlay for wages and salaries represents a 2.9% increase. The total allocation of wages and salaries accounts for 32.4% of total expenditure and 45.7% of recurrent revenue. A sum of $294.6 million has been allocated for debt service payments, consisting of interest payments of $170.4 million, principal repayments of $112.5 million, and most importantly, a sinking fund contribution of $12 million. The projection represents a marginal increase relative to the 2016-2017 revised estimates and accounts for 25.6% of the budgeted recurrent expenditure for 2017-2018. Principal repayments are forecasted to decrease by $10.8 million, as some loans notes were fully amortized at the end of the fiscal year. Of the $112.5 million allocated for principal repayments, $80.5 million is to cover the amortization of external debt, and $31.96 million is for domestic debt. Interest provision has been maintained at the same level as 2016-2017, as interest costs are expected to increase by $4.4 million, or 2.7% over the outturn for last year, to reach a total of $170.1 million. Of the total amount allocated for interest payments, 76.5% is to service interest payments on T-bills, Treasury notes, and bonds. A provisional sum of $7.4 million is budgeted to cover interest charges on new debt to be contracted during 2017-18. Let me repeat that again. A provisional sum of $7.4 million is budgeted debt to be contracted during 2017-2018, and that's obviously in addition to the $12 million. The budgetary provision for transfer payments has been increased by 8%, or $10.5 million, to a total of $141 million. The increase is preliminary as a result of the additional provision included for the operations of St. Lucia Events Corporation, which is the new events company, $12 million for the summer festivals, La Soleil. St. Lucia Social Development Fund, SSDF, $1 million for Hope and Step Up, and the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority, $300,000. These increases were offset by the reduction in the allocation for subsidies to the supply warehouse, as it is anticipated that with the reduction in purchase price for some of the commodities, financial support from the central government may not be required. So let me explain that in layman's terms. What we've seen at the warehouse is that the price for sugar and rice has declined, where we're making a sufficient profit on those numbers, staying within the fixed price regime that we have. And that surplus is being used to pay to subsidize for the flour. And therefore, the $4.4 million that was being allocated there to cover any shortfalls is being taken away and put somewhere else in the budget. The allocation to the St. Lucia Tourism Authority was increased by $1.6 million to a total of $10.6 million, $5.6 million of which is to cover administrative expenses, a decrease of $3.3 million when compared to $8.9 million in the previous year. So administrative expenses has declined from $8.9 for which a provisional amount of $5 million has been included in the allocation for this fiscal year. With respect to goods and services, the government is proposing an allocation of $198.4 million under goods and services to cover the cost of essential supplies, rental, utilities, and other services required for its operations. The budgeted amount represents an increase of 13.4%, or $26.7 million increase compared to the revised estimates for the preceding year. The increased allocation is primarily attributed to, among things, the additional provision made for increased coverage under the catastrophic risk insurance of $3 million, meaning we're that eventuality, professional and consultancy services of $3 million, operating and maintenance of $14 million for road maintenance and supplies. I think everybody in St. Lucia would agree that a substantial increase in the budget for infrastructure is long overdue, and we intend to start that process. Previously, $1.4 million was allocated to acquire supplies for road rehabilitation and to complete the provision in the capital budget. Grossly inadequate. A contingency provision of $3 million is included in the recurrent budget to cater for unforeseen and urgent expenditures during the next fiscal year. With respect to the development of expenditures, the government has allocated $362.1 million to its capital program in the new financial fiscal year. The proposed capital budget represents $36.2 million, or 11.1% increase over last year's approved estimates. The 2017 ACAP budget demonstrates the government's commitment to the growing economy by investing more heavily in economic service sectors, which include the agricultural sector, which will see an increase from $23.602 million to $49,270 million. That there will be an increase to infrastructure from $43.8 million to $60.769 million. An increase in tourism from $25.24 million to $33.628 million, and an increase in housing of 110% from $12.1 million to $25.5 million. The allocation to social services accounts for 20% of our capital budget. Of the total amount allocated for the capital expenditure, 15% will be funded using domestic resources amounting to $54.9 million. 24% will be funded by the use of grant funds in the amount of $87.4 million, while the balance of $219.8 million will be funded from loans and bonds. I thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Castries East. Member for Castries East and Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when I heard the Prime Minister begin his presentation, I thought I was in a different place. I could not believe that the Prime Minister was saying what he said about the performance of the economy under the management of the St. Lucia Labour Party. But I've made the point several times before that reality comes to bear, and economics is about figures and not about speculation or good speeches or even vindictiveness or victimization. Economics is about figures. It's a quantitative science. And the truth always comes to the forefront when you're dealing with the subject. The Prime Minister and his government had said that the economy was so bad. This government had mismanaged the economy so much. Things were in a mess. The country was overtaxed. The country was overburdened. They even had to look for experts to deal with the budget process. So they imported Ernst & Young to deal with the budget process. So I look back and I said to myself, why did the Prime Minister have to do that? Why was the budget so bad? Why was the past Minister of Finance such a disaster? Why the government could not do anything because of the budget? Government was in problems. The budget, we tied it for budget. A budget, not our budget. We have to present our own budget. So I looked at the estimates for 2016-2017, and I looked at the estimates for 2017-2018. And I began with the forward. And I want to quote, Madam Speaker, and I don't think it's necessary to make it a document of the House, because that's a public document. I want to read the forward of that document. And it says, this year, 2016-2017, marks the third year of continuous strides in our quest towards strengthening fiscal discipline through strategic budget reform process. The ultimate aim of these persistent efforts is to ensure that the government finances are sustainable in the long term and the budget spending decisions are more consistent with national policies and priorities. Expenditure priorities for 2016-27 fiscal year are focused primarily within the following key areas: infrastructural development, value-added agriculture and fisheries, improving security, enhancing the quality of and access to basic education and essential healthcare services, enhancing public sector efficiency, eliminating gender bias, and promoting children's rights. That was the 2016-2017 forward of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And I looked at the forward of this government for 2017-2018, and I don't need to make it a document of the House because you have it. And I read, and I quote, the budget reform exercise introduced 4 years ago. The budget reform exercise introduced 4 years ago. That was the mess they inherited. That's why they had to import Ernst & Young. That was a mess. But here's what they say in their own document. The budget reform exercise introduced 4 years ago focused on strengthening the link between resource allocation, agency spending, and government strategic priorities. The 2017-18 estimate of expenditure seeks to ensure that agencies' budgets reflect government priorities and support the improvement of service delivery. Now, in its 4th year, and I quote, now in its 4th year, so it's not the mess. The mess has now become good in the 4th year. Now in its 4th year, the estimates of expenditure provides information on the objectives and strategies of departments and outlines targets for service delivery in key output areas. In this way, it allows accounting officers to track performance, promote transparency, and allows for more informed debate in Parliament and within civil society. The objectives in the 2016-2017 estimates and the objectives in the 2017 estimates identical. But they told the people of St. Lucia that we'd made such a mess. Things were so bad. The Minister of Finance didn't know what he was doing. So they had no budget. And wait till the budget comes. We can't do anything. The budget, we inherited a budget. We can't spend any money. That's what they told the people of St. Lucia. That's what they told the people of St. Lucia. But the truth, Madam Speaker, and they will spin it. They will spin the truth. They will say, they will continue their vindictiveness. They will continue their targeting of people. They will continue. But the truth of the economic reality that they inherited from this government will come to light. I want to quote, Madam Speaker, from the fiscal and structural reforms of St. Lucia towards a comprehensive agenda. I don't need to make it a document house because this executive summary, notwithstanding the improvement in fiscal performance in the past 4 years, notwithstanding the improvement in fiscal performance in the past 4 years. That is the mess they inherited. That is what they told the people of St. Lucia. That's the mess. This government has done a complete mess with the economy. The economy is in chaos. They have to save it. They have to survive to stay alive. But, Madam Speaker, the reality is, and I turn to the summary Because, Madam Speaker, every word I say today, I will back it with facts, and I will back it with using sometimes their own documents. I turn to the summary of estimates for 2017-2018, and the Minister of Finance, he very skillfully gave the ratios for 2016-2017, but he refused to tell the country what will happen with the budget of dreams, to the estimates of dreams that he has put forward to his Honourable House. But I will tell you, the estimates, these figures that are included in these estimates of revenue expenditure will lead this country into economic chaos, and most likely, the country will have to get a structural adjustment program very soon, sooner than later. And the facts are here, and I will prove to you why what I'm saying is true. So, Madam Speaker, I've established that there is nothing new in that budget. There's nothing new in the estimates. The estimates are basically the same heads, basically the same, Madam Speaker. I want you to take some time and look at it. This basically the same thing. What was Ernst & Young paid for? It's exactly, if you look at it, the same headings, no difference. Absolutely no difference. Even some of the heads are the same. I mean, you go through it, page, summaries, exactly the same. So what that meant is that they took the Pewter solution for a ride, flashing mirrors. Because there's no difference. So they've spent millions of dollars. Some say 7 million, some say 300,000, some to pay Ernst & Young, and they've come out with the same document that the same civil servants prepared, the same civil servants that they didn't trust. A minister said he doesn't trust civil servants. A minister said they've done all kinds of things, said civil servants leaked documents. The same civil servants prepared the same document, and that is the same document that they are bringing in this Honourable House today. Let us get to the figures, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this budget is risky, it's dangerous, and it is an irresponsible deficit budget. It's risky, it's dangerous, and it's irresponsible. Because it fails to deal with fiscal consolidation, it fails to deal with the realities of the economic situation, it fails to follow on the path that this government inherited when they came into power in June. I'll tell you why, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let us look at some elements important to the country and important to the world. Madam Speaker, government is not a gamble. It's not a business. It's not dealing in shares. It's not speculation. When you have a business dealing in shares, there's a silly notion that government is business. Government can't be business. Some aspects of government can be run as a business, but government is not a business. Government has to deal with several things, including livelihoods, the needs of people. So government can't be a business. How can your health sector be a business? How can your social services be a business? So the notion that businessmen can run government is not, it's never shown to be correct. It has never been correct, because government is not a business. Government is not speculation. Government cannot be speculation, Madam Speaker. And when government becomes business, you deal with the victimization that they are accustomed with. You deal with the fact that you bring the police to go out people's homes and people's businesses because you want to victimize them. When the government becomes a business, you deal with audits, not forgetting that the audits that you're trying to do, your government spent more than 50% of the expenditure in the audit that you want to do. But you forget because you're so vindictive. Your focus on making people cry. That's the focus, Madam Speaker. Government is not like that. Madam Speaker, tax revenue. This government said to the people of St. Lucia that the country is overburdened with tax. Too much tax, we are overburdened. Why are we paying so much tax? Taxes. Madam Speaker, in the estimates, the revenue for tax has not changed. Same thing. If the country is overburdened with tax, you should reduce it. No, same thing. But the country is overburdened, too much tax. And Madam Speaker, I will challenge the Prime Minister again to tell the public what he is going to do with that. Because I'm going to prove to you, Madam Speaker, by simple arithmetic, not mathematics, arithmetic, that the yield that the government has proposed on VAT cannot be correct if they maintain the same level of goods as exempt goods under 12.5%. It's impossible. I'm going to put that to you later on, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the government has foregone substantial VAT revenue, but they've kept the level of taxation the same. What they did, they taxed tourism. This is what they did. They taxed tourism, Madam Speaker. And regardless of how they were told that taxing tourism will have an impact on visitor arrival, all the studies show that. I've had discussions with very important hoteliers that are alarmed at government taxing of tourism. A CDB study showed that the elasticity of travel, Madam Speaker, is such that when you tax tourism, it has an effect on visitor arrivals. This government refuses to understand. This government refuses to understand that, Madam Speaker. So, as they say, they're taking a risk. So they are risking, they are taxing tourism, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the government says that non-tax revenue will increase. Line item 42, it increased by $39 million, or 114%. And they base that on the Citizens for Investment program, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, you know, this government has said so many things about the Citizens for Investment program. In this honorable house, when they were in opposition, they are the ones who caused the Citizens for Investment program to have a slow start. In fact, it got to such a position where a minister said that the only reason why we are having issues with impacts because the government is involved with Venezuela and Cuba. But I understand that this government has returned to Venezuela. They are going to deal with ALBA funds. They are going to receive ALBA funds. But you understand? But we are castigated. That impact is because of Venezuela. That we are dealing with communists. But they have returned and understand part of the housing situation. They are going to Venezuela. The Venezuela that they've condemned so much. And we stand in solidarity with the democratic processes in Venezuela. The Venezuela they have condemned so much, they are going back to Venezuela for ALBA funds. They are going back to Venezuela for housing, Madam Speaker. What a difference. What a difference a day makes. Transfers, Madam Speaker. The government have increased transfers by $18 million, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, they've increased transfers. Part of these transfers are to go to Arthur Lewis Community College. They say that they're going to make a university, so Arthur Lewis Community College, but the amount budgeted for is the same. And today, the teachers at Arthur Lewis can't get paid. But they are going to have a university with Arthur Lewis College. You budget the same amount of money, $15 million of transfers to Sir Arthur Lewis, and today you can't pay them. But, Madam Speaker, you are transferring $4 million to the Castries City Council. You maintain the level of $4 million of transfers to the Castries City Council. You have absolutely no plan for what you're doing there. You have no plan. You remove $700,000 from National Trust, but you spend money on a Castries City Council building. No one knows what you're doing. I want to know if there's any plan approval for that. I haven't seen the reason for it, Madam Speaker. No one is looking at that. But you don't have money to put in the National Trust. You have money for that. But you have money to spend on that was a traditional building, a building that you could use, not, I can't blame the government, because if you remove money from the National Trust, you don't believe in nature heritage, you don't believe in the heritage of the country. So very soon you will see that we can forget our status in Soufrière. We can forget this heritage status in Soufrière, because this year, Madam Speaker, when governments behave vindictively, when governments aim at making people cry, that's what happens, You take actions and you don't understand the repercussions of the action. St. Lucia, Soufrière is the nature heritage site. That's a world-renowned site. But the people who are in charge of dealing with that site, you withdraw funding from them because they tell you that let us discuss a dolphin park and let us discuss taking 900 acres of land and Maria Islet for the people of St. Lucia. And I want to make a statement today, Madam Speaker. This Labour Party never approved any dolphin park. Party never approved any dolphin park to be built at Pigeon Point. Never. We never. I will not be disturbed by it. This government never approved any dolphin park for Pigeon Point. Never. This government never approved any dolphin park for Pigeon Point. So, Madam Speaker, we're talking about transfers. This government never approved any dolphin park for Pigeon Point. We never approved any dolphin park for any national landmark. We never approved any dolphin park for any national landmark. We never approved any dolphin park for any national landmark. Can we say a national landmark? So, Madam Speaker, we get back, Madam Speaker, to the mess, the dream that they have created here and they call estimates. That's what you're dealing with, the dream, the dreams, the dangerous and irresponsible budget statements that they've dealt with, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the debt burden of this government, Madam Speaker, will increase in this fiscal year. It's going to increase, and that's the same government that said we were overburdened with debt, Madam Speaker. And when we were in government, we always made a point that the debt is not good. Nobody likes debt. But because of the prevailing circumstances, we have to borrow. And I'm going to show to you, Madam Speaker, that this government has consistently and persistently misled the people of St. Lucia when it comes to debt. But again, the figures will show. I'm going to quote their own figures, Madam Speaker, to show how they consistently and persistently have misled the people of St. Lucia when it comes to debt in St. Lucia and their own social and economic review. Their own social and economic review, Madam Speaker. And I quote from page, and I don't even make a document in the House because you have it already. Page 51 of their own social and economic review. You see, Madam Speaker, it says, public debt. At the end of 2016, the official stock of public debt, which includes central government liabilities, government guaranteed and public non-guaranteed debt, grew by 2.6% to $2.988 billion. This represents a slowdown of the rate of debt accumulation. This represents a slowdown of the rate of debt accumulation, which in the decade, and they're so smart, they say decade. You understand? Use and abuse of statistics. They say decade. Has grown at an average of 6.8%. But, Madam Speaker, I'm going to tell you that look at the debt I have done, Madam Speaker, an official public debt analysis using page 101 of the Social and Economic Review. Madam Speaker, in the year 2009 to 2010, public debt increased by $207 million. 2010 to 2011, $236 million. 2012 to 2013, $124 million began to decrease. 2014 to 2013, $130 million. 2014 to 2015, $125 million. And 2015 to 2016, $75 million. That is the debt profile. You agree that it may be difficult to raise money on the bond market, but when you go and tell people, St. Lucia, that this government has overtaxed debt, you understand? When you tell people that, Madam Speaker, that is what the truth, Madam Speaker. So right now, because the truth, Madam Speaker, the reality, Madam Speaker, that all the time you were fooling the people of St. Lucia. All the time you were misleading the people of St. Lucia, Madam Speaker. But right now, the facts, the figures, and in their rebuttal, Madam Speaker, I want them not to deal with flashing mirrors, deal with facts, figures, not what you sing. What is the reality, Madam Speaker? So, Madam Speaker, the government will increase this fiscal year. External borrowings will increase by $56 million. Borrowing by the last set of people who did that was Greece. The last people that was Greece, Madam Speaker, and you know where Greece arrived, Madam Speaker. But the figures for 2017, 2000 show a difference, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, let's go further. Madam Speaker. The recurrent deficit, which is government's recurrent regular revenue, such as tax revenue, is not sufficient to cover recurrent or unaffordable expenses such as wages and salaries, Madam Speaker. In its first budget since assuming office, the government is increasing the recurrent deficit by 109%. This government is increasing the recurrent deficit by 109% in its first year. And if you see it, Madam Speaker, look at it as a summary, the figures, summary, the budget, Madam Speaker. And these are the indicators that the IMF uses, the CDB uses, the World Bank uses, and serious investors use. Not the word serious investors, not investors that take everything and give nothing. Serious investors. These are the indicators that they use, Madam Speaker. Primary deficit. The primary deficit is the difference between current government spending on goods and services and total current revenue from all types of taxes, net transfers. That's the primary deficit. This year, it's expected that the primary deficit, Madam Speaker, will be $50.7 million, which will be a reversal from a primary surplus this government inherited in 2017, a primary surplus of $102 million, a surplus. They've reversed it in 1 year to a deficit of $50 million. That is the management of the economy. These are the estimates that this government are presenting to the people of St. Lucia. They inherited a surplus of $102 million, and they are getting us to a minor situation of $50 million, Madam Speaker. This amounts to a negative shift of $152.8 million. That is what this government, this government, Madam Speaker, these economic geniuses, that is where they are put in this country. That is what this government is doing in this country, and these are figures. And I want you to tell me these figures are incorrect. These are figures, Madam Speaker. And if Ernst & Young prepare a budget, these are Ernst & Young figures. The overall deficit, Madam Speaker, the overall deficit is expected, Madam Speaker, to increase by $158 million, moving from 1.4% of GDP to 4.7% of GDP. That's the overall deficit, Madam Speaker. That is the state of the economy that this government is giving the children of St. Lucia. And compared to what they inherited in 2016, 2017. It's there for you to see, Madam Speaker. Compared, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, this government has plunged the country into serious deficit financing. And that's not new. But they've plunged it, they've plunged it in such a way that they have changed surpluses into deficits. They've changed primary surpluses into primary deficits, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is economic. It's modern madness. This is irresponsible, Madam Speaker. It's irresponsible. But you know why? They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. You think they care about the people the children who have to pay that? They don't care. They can afford it. They can afford it. They don't care. That's not a business. So it's a joke. You turn a primary surplus into a deficit. You in a hunt of $152 million, but that's a joke. So, Madam Speaker, most economists will tell you that when the overall deficit approaches 5%, these are alarm bells. Any student of economics will tell you that is dangerous, Madam Speaker. But this government goes into it willingly, even if they found themselves inheriting a platform where these things had started to be reversed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this government, Madam Speaker, I said before, is leading this country down a dangerous path of spending, tax and spend. It's old-fashioned Keynesian economics. Old-fashioned Keynesian economics, where they believe that they can stimulate economic development only by growth in consumption. Economic development is not spurred only by growth in consumption because of the fiscal multipliers. So even though you have an increase in consumption, that doesn't mean that you have growth. That doesn't mean that the government's books will look better. And they learned that with the reduction in VAT. Because they reduced VAT, they made a big hue and cry, they'll put more money in the economy. $52 million in the economy. Go and ask the lady in Masha, when she went to the supermarket, how much money did she save because you reduced VAT? And you made a big fuss of me. That was a whole story when I said $5 can block a hole. But it will be left to haunt you. What will haunt you is you'll just start to cry. You will hear that from now till the cocks crow. Because by this single sentence was, and what hurt me, Madam Speaker, is the Prime Minister. Instead of the Prime Minister pulling up his minister and say, Minister, you shouldn't say that. The Prime Minister endorsed it. So the Prime Minister endorsed it that Labour Party supporters must cry. He further endorsed 90% of the people are Labour, so there is no political fallout. And he further endorsed it. That is why they have endorsed him taking off $700,000 from National Trust. Victimization. Madam Speaker, we're going to deal with some items of revenue. You will not see the relationship between two of them. You can't. Page 8, Madam Speaker, the airport tax. This government will collect $18 million more from effort tax, 173%. And this government, they heard the cries of the SHTA. I said in this honorable house that the airport tax would have a negative effect on travel. As usual, they laughed at me. They laughed at me on Papi Show. The SHTA put it in writing to them. The St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association put it in writing. If they give them money, they surely withdraw it too. Because the SHTA is not labor. The SHTA told them that if you put that tax, it's going to have a negative effect on travel. Major hoteliers told them so, Madam Speaker. So what they did? They said they defer it. They said they defer it. But initially, that was a bad decision. And history proved it's a bad decision, Madam Speaker. But once it comes from the Labour Party, they discard it, they laugh at it, and they look to injure and to hurt the messenger and not the message. That's what they do. That is the crux of this government. Injure the messenger, make them cry. That's the crux. That's what it's all about. Make them cry. They sit in cabinet for 8 hours. People cry and win the civil servants in the last 2 hours, because the first 8 hours is to make people cry. Madam Speaker, excise tax, line 102 of line 012, Madam Speaker, on these estimates, excise tax, Madam Speaker. The excise tax have increased like $17 million, Madam Speaker. 20% increase. I want to ask for the Prime Minister, what's in there? What's in there? What's in that? I'd like to know. You can't tell me it's increasing investment, because the investors, you give them duty-free concessions. I have nothing against that. So all the increased investment will not give you more money in the treasury, because they have duty-free concessions. So the question is, why would excise tax increase by such amount, Madam Speaker? On page 9, Madam Speaker, there's an increase in terminal dues and user fees. I don't know why. I hope the Minister of Finance will tell me. But, Madam Speaker, page 14, the minibus drivers, there's an increase in route permit fees. Last year, we collected. This year, they are projecting $490,000, Madam Speaker. Minibus drivers, watch it. Madam Speaker, now we will come to VAT. VAT, Madam Speaker. We will come to VAT. Madam Speaker, last year, the government collected. Madam Speaker, you take the time check for me. How much time do you have left? Please, sorry.
You are due, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, to end at 4:25.
4:25.
By this clock.
Okay. All right. Madam Speaker, VAT, Madam Speaker. In 2017, Madam Speaker, this government collected $336,518,855 from VAT. In 2018, out of that, Madam Speaker, they collected from the customs $159 million and from inner revenue $176 million. In 2018, they are forecasting and 163 from the inner revenue, a total of $302 million from VAT, a decrease of $43 million from VAT this year. But, Madam Speaker, that's the devil is in the details. The devil is in the details. Madam Speaker, VAT revenue estimates for financial year 2017-2018, as I said before, is $302 million. Let us analyze the VAT yield, Madam Speaker, for 2016-17 as compared to 2017-18. It's on page 7, page 8. That's what you're looking for. The analysis of VAT, Madam Speaker. $346 million at 15%. That is the previous year. That means, Madam Speaker, that for every 1% of VAT, the government collects $22,400,000. $444,000. Let's say $22 million. For every 1% of the VAT. That's for last year. Now for this year, they are proposing, based on their figures, that they will collect $202 million. That means, Madam Speaker, for every 1% of VAT, they're going to collect $24 million. At 15%, you collected 22, but now you're going to collect 24, Madam Speaker. The question is, why? The question is, why, Madam Speaker? So, I want the Prime Minister, in his rebuttal, to tell the people of St. Lucia that they will not put VAT, put more items on the exempt list, or not change the zero-rated item list. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on VAT, this government promised in the 5 to Stay Alive, they would reduce VAT and possibly eliminate VAT. Thank you, comrade. They would eliminate VAT. But you know what? You know what? You know what? You know, when you know, Madam Speaker, look at page 8. Look at page 8. Look at page 8. That's the government that said they will remove VAT. Look at page 8 and page 7. And I speak to item 353014, value tax. They are projecting VAT to 2018, 2019, and 2020. That's the government that will remove VAT. We remove VAT. VAT is bothersome, but we remove it. 5 to Stay Alive. 5 to Stay Alive. But you have VAT in 2018, you have VAT in 2019, you have VAT in 2020. Flashing mirrors. Take it out. Keep your promise to the people of St. Lucia. Remove it or eliminate it. That's what you promise the people. But you have it budgeted and major amounts to you. Major amounts, Madam Speaker. Major amounts for VAT. 163 million 2017-18, 166 million in 2018, and 170 million in 2020. But you know what? If they last, 2020 is near 2021. So when 2021 hit, they say, we reduce VAT. That's what they'll do. Next 2020, we reduce VAT. Never all the time. Madam Speaker, interest payments, Madam Speaker, interest payments. This government has made the point about debt. About debt. Their own economic social review showed our trajectory as far as debt is concerned, Madam Speaker. Their own figures show the point, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, just for the record, 2018 interest payments 170 million, 14.77%. Line 128, 2018, loan repayments 112%. You see, Madam Speaker, and they're back in the sinking fund. You run a deficit by our sinking fund. Who is advising the government? You run a primary deficit. You run an overall deficit, but you're having a sinking fund. If I answer you, it's Simon. I won't fall in that trap. I'll rise above that. Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, expenditure, page 57, code 247. There was a distress fund of $417,000 when poor people's house got burned. They would apply from all constituencies. When poor people's houses got burned, they would apply to the parliamentary rep. They would apply to the parliamentary rep, and the parliamentary rep would write to the Prime Minister, and he would give them some support after fire and that kind of thing. They've removed it. The distress fund. Distress fund. They've eliminated that. Nice, man, Speaker. Under the Prime Minister. $19 million. They have eliminated. But, man, Speaker, the cruel thing about nice, man, Speaker. And you know, all of us are politicians. All of us like our supporters. All of us are pleased our supporters. But this government has brought it to a degree never before. Never before. Man, Speaker, do you know in Castries East, there were 26 home care providers. And I have the names. Man, Speaker, they send all of them home except 2. And you know why they send the 2? I wouldn't say why. I will not say why. You understand? They make them cry. Make them cry. That's what they did. They make them cry. So their children must stay without school books. Their children must not be able to go to the health center. They must not pay the little loans they have in the credit union. They must not be able to pay their house rent because 90% of them are Labour Party supporters. So you make them cry. So you send all of them home and you replace them with your people. And then you say that the NICE program was not sustainable. But you've kept the home care part of it, a program that you condemned. You promised to make NICE nicer. You made these people cry. The people you sent home on the home care givers program, you made them cry. That's what you plan to do. That's what you said you do, man, Speaker. And you know, man, Speaker, the hurtful thing is some of the people that they make cry, they send for NICE. These people were not even Labour Party supporters. They were not. You understand? But they sent them home. And no one had the courtesy to call the parliamentary rep, just like the Castries City Council. In fact, the Castries City Council has done one thing, and I want to thank them for that, for Castries East. One thing, they put back the internet in my park in Toulouse. I want to thank them for that. The only thing they did for me. You understand? Only one thing. You understand? Because, man, Speaker, when I come here, I want to speak the truth. And I want what I say to be able to be documented and used for or against me if you can. So, man, Speaker, but with a NICE program, this is so hurtful, man, Speaker. You send these people home and you replace them. You send, and man, Speaker, let me tell you something. Do you know the people on the NICE program, the home care program, you know they were trained? They got a series of training. I understand. Now, don't hold me to that. I understand that the people that they replace them with were not properly trained. I understand they were getting about their injection. I understand, Madam Speaker, that these people, they were so untrained that they made errors, mistakes, trying to cut people nails and they cut their tooth. You understand? Because they weren't trained. They weren't trained, man, Speaker. But you know, that is to make them cry. And I mean, common courtesy will tell you, if you are sending 26 people at home, I mean, let's be a little, I mean, all of us have sent solutions, not because you UWP and I'm Labour. You must treat me as if I'm an outcast, and you must make me cry. At least, do not do the supporters better. Do me. You're the customer doing me. Not the supporters. Not the supporters, man, Speaker. You're not the supporters. But, man, Speaker, the NICE workers will never forget.
Honourable Member, you have 15 more minutes within which to complete your presentation.
Yes, man, Speaker. I'll finish, man.
I'm just counting down the time.
I'm a man to my word. I told an hour. The NICE workers, man, Speaker, that you sent home will never forget that. They will never forget. Because for every one person that you fire, you've affected 3 people. And these 3 people, even they're 15 years now, they'll be 18 when the time comes. Madam Speaker, page 66, just a glance. I want to know, by the way, there's a credit union employment initiative for $1 million on the Prime Minister's estimates. Remove. No longer, remove, Madam Speaker. On page 66, Madam Speaker, there's nothing for the press secretary. I don't know who is paying us. Page 123, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of National Security. Madam Speaker, you know, when I heard this government talk about security and how the Labour Party did nothing about security, and they take the DPP's office and say, we have a new DPP, we'll go to them the forensic lab. Madam Speaker, do you know that the Minister of Finance once said that the forensic lab is useless? He said we should have a regional forensic lab. That's what he said. And now, right now, the forensic lab is the best thing that ever happened to them. Is the best that ever happened to them, the forensic lab, Madam Speaker. That's the best that happened to them. But, Madam Speaker, I am glad, but they know the story to the forensic lab. They know it very well. But you know, they know the entire story because they boast that they have all the information, Madam Speaker. Tell the people the story on the forensic lab. They know the entire story, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, do you know that there have been no major increase in the number of police officers in this country? There are 1,854 police officers in 2017-2016. In 2018 going forward, there are the same amount of police officers, Madam Speaker. You understand? So do not pretend. Now I understand that we have fiscal issues, but don't pretend as if this government did nothing. Don't pretend, Madam Speaker. The rate of increase of capital expenditure for the National Security Ministry is the same rate in proportion with when we're in government and when they are there. So I understand you have fiscal difficulties, but don't blame everything on the government. You understand? Madam Speaker, infrastructure. Madam Speaker, infrastructure, the Minister for Infrastructure has not followed his colleagues. He's maintained all the programs that he inherited, Madam Speaker. The Tamaso Bridge, the Canaries Bridge, he's continued them, Madam Speaker. But I noticed that there is, in the budget for the Ministry of Infrastructure, there is $400,000 more for the silting. And the silting is a thing that, you know, the silting have a whole story. See the silting? I have a whole story. That's a thing that, you know what I mean? You see the silting? That word they call desilting. Desilting, that word. Community infrastructure. Community infrastructure, Madam Speaker. They've replaced community infrastructure by roads in towns and villages. I have no problem with that, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, there is nothing for the Grocery Highway. $3.9 million for the Grocery Highway. That's what's there. But, Madam Speaker, the Grocery Highway is another story, which we'll talk about at another time, Madam Speaker. Secondary roads, $5 million. That is new expenditure. It's needed because the roads are bad. I have no problem with that. I just hope you spread it in the coast. No problem with that. $5 million, territory roads. I hope you can spread it equally among us, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I noticed that QAT agricultural roads have disappeared. Madam Speaker, housing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the CDB, there's in page 491, there is an item for housing. But, Madam Speaker, the CDB have said that to give the policy-based loans, there must be a procurement finance. You have to implement a procurement policy. The CDB will not give you money unless you have a procurement policy. So I hope you know that if you have resistance towards the procurement policy, you will not get that policy-based loan from the CDB. Proud, Madam Speaker. They attack Proud. They say everything about Proud. Now they are doing the same Proud, Madam Speaker. I want to ask them, Madam Speaker, don't let the people in Rockall cry. Don't let them cry. There's a Proud. We started a Proud for the people in Rockall. Continue it. Don't let them cry in Rockall. Please, don't let them cry. Try to make me cry, although you won't succeed. But don't make them cry. Don't let the people in Rockall cry. And don't let the people, so the Proud program, I want you to implement it in Rockall. And I want you to continue the Proud program in Bagatelle, to start a Proud program in Bagatelle, where I promise, and the work started in getting the people in Bagatelle to own the lands on which they have the houses, Madam Speaker. There's also a consultancy of $103,000 in the Ministry of Housing. I don't know why it's there. External Affairs, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker. All these issues the government had with external affairs. They call them, what do you call them, cocktail diplomats? cocktail diplomats, wasting money, jobs for the boys. Jobs for the boys, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker, the allowances for Excel affairs has increased. You know they're paying more money in London. They're paying $92,000 more in London, Madam Speaker, in foreign affairs. And do you know, Madam Speaker, that the personal immortality $8.9 million to $9.3 million in external affairs, even though civil aviation and international trade are no longer there. Madam Speaker, subsidies, Madam Speaker, subsidies, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they've removed the $4 million subsidies for sugar, flour, and rice. The Prime Minister gave an explanation, time will tell. You know, Madam Speaker, impacts. You know the government contributes to impacts. Tell the constable on the road that this government contributes to impacts. They'll tell you no. Because they made the people believe that impacts was a thing of labor. But this government, they continue to make the $264,000 contribution to impacts. Nobody, I don't think the normal policeman knows that. He thinks that impact is something recreated. But impacts is there all the time, and this government is continuing their contribution to impact, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Tourism Authority, Madam Speaker, in the transfer payments, you continue paying impact $24,000. What are you talking about? You are paying impacts $24,000 in transfers. For the regional impacts? I'm not saying no, but I'm saying you get the impression that impact is something we recreated. Huh? That's what you pretending. Flashing mirrors again. You see? Madam Speaker, SLASPA, Madam Speaker, there's an increase for SLASPA. I want to know why. The Tourism Authority, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I really want to have some time to discuss that, but I promise you I'll finish at 4:20, so we're not going to deal with the Tourism Authority. Because the time will come. Because that bluff, that flashing mirror of the Tourism Authority, and that flashing mirror they use, Madam Speaker, I will dismantle that when the time comes. Hospitals, Madam Speaker. St. Jude's Hospital. Same allocation of $10 million for St. Jude's. No, not sorry. The St. Jude's Hospital, Madam Speaker, that is another story. But, Madam Speaker, as I made the point before, that out of the expenses for St. Jude Hospital, a little less than 50% of these expenses were initiated when they were in government. The Festival Commission, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Festival Commission, I want to know, the government has removed the money from Carnival, the Commission. I hope it's not to make Labour Party supporters cry again. I hope it's not to make Calypsonians removing the independence of Calypsonians. I hope to do that, because to say that, because if you can remove money, if you can do the National Trust what you did them, you can do anything.
Minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to deal with I want to tell the Cali City Council to continue to leave the high five for the people in Stouge, and not because I asked them whether there's any plan that they must make the people in Stouge cry. But, Madam Speaker, I maintain, Madam Speaker, that when you are spending that kind of money, you need to have a plan. You know, Madam Speaker, I tell you something. There are something called the city police, and it looks good. You have people walking the streets and you call them police. But, Madam Speaker, did anybody make an analysis to see how you could merge, what synergies you could gain if you had implemented that in conjunction with the police force? Couldn't there be savings? I'm just asking. Where is the study? Where is the work that says that's the best thing to do? I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but where is the way I say that, Madam Speaker? So, Madam Speaker, this budget, Madam Speaker, is risky and dangerous. The framers of the budget are dealing with straight Keynesian economics, tax and spend. is dangerous, Madam Speaker. That has not worked. It didn't work in Greece, it didn't work in Barbados, it will not work in St. Lucia. History has shown, Madam Speaker, that running these deficits, consistent deficits, do not work. Madam Speaker, I want the people of St. Lucia to know that the recurrent deficit will increase by 109%. The recurrent deficit is projected to move from 3.4% to 7.6%. A primary deficit of 50.7 million is anticipated this year, a reversal from a primary surplus of 102.8 million recorded in 26. The overall deficit of the government will increase this year by 7% of GDP this year. Madam Speaker, all caution the consolidation that this government inherited, they failed to continue it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the old-fashioned Keynesian economics does not work in small, open economies. Madam Speaker, when the government runs a deficit budget, national government savings decrease. Public debt increases. Higher debt and reduced savings, Madam Speaker, results in higher interest rate and a higher cost of debt, continuing a vicious circle, Mr. Speaker. And, Madam Speaker, and that inevitably leads to structural reform, and that comes with the IMF, Madam Speaker. Large deficits, Madam Speaker, result in unstable fiscal policy, as the government is forced to juggle to reprioritize its commitments, Madam Speaker. What we need is a strategy of programmed fiscal consolidation, reducing public deficits and prosperity led by the private sector, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the UWP government inherited an improvement in fiscal performance. The UWP government, Madam Speaker, they were so concerned in making people cry, in vindictiveness, in victimization, Madam Speaker, that they are allowing that to slip by the policies. Madam Speaker, fiscal and economic management is about fiscal consolidation. It's about debt reduction. It's about gender-responsive budgeting. It's about efficiency in government spending. It's about fiscal discipline. It's about sound planning. It's about constructive alliances with the private sector and sound, sustainable investments, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this government had the opportunity, the people of St. Lucia had the opportunity to continue on that path. But because of their vindictive nature, because of their desire to make people of the Labour Party suffer, because of their desire to make us cry, because of their desire, Mr. Speaker, they have allowed that by stopping into a fiscal mess that will inevitably lead to the introduction of a structural adjustment by the IMF. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member for Ancillary Canneries, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for tourism, information and broadcasting.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I rise to add my voice to this rather important motion, Madam Speaker, I would like to conclude that the speaker that has gone before me is very, very low. When he would suggest, Madam Speaker, that the economic performance of the last year was actually very successful, I go into the body of my presentation, pertains to the current economic environment and the economic performance of the last 10 years that we have found ourselves in. Madam Speaker, I think that it is mediocre to suggest that a 0.9 growth in GDP is actually success. It is mediocre, Madam Speaker, to suggest that we've inherited a successful economic performance from the Labour administration, when in the last 10 years, the Social Economic Review suggests that the average growth rate of the country is very skeletal at 1.3%, Madam Speaker. These are facts.
Honourable
Madam,
Member?
yes.
My apologies. Would you like the rostrum?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah. That's fine. Madam Speaker, I want them to see me clearly. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your kindness and for your concern about me. But, Madam Speaker, I like to be free. Madam Speaker, for the most part of the previous administration, the unemployment rate hovered well over 20%. Madam Speaker, businesses closed. Madam Speaker, there was a drought in investment in this country. Madam Speaker, people lost hope because of the very bad economic performance of the past administration. And to say to us in this honorable House today that we have inherited a very successful situation, it is mediocre. And Madam Speaker, it suggests to me, it is what they do normally when they're in opposition. They desperately try as they seek momentum. Madam Speaker, youth unemployment was even worse. It was well, hundreds of young people are still feeling the brunt of their economic performance. They're still suffering, Madam Speaker, and they have failed to recover, which is why on June 6th of 2016, they trust and they place their hopes and faith in the United Workers' Party. You know, Madam Speaker, I'm pretty new to this. I haven't been in Parliament as long as my friend from the Honourable Member for Castries East, who has been MP for his constituency for well over 20 years. And I sit and I watch the constituency and I cry for those people. And it is the same mediocrity with which he's approached this debate, that he presides over the constituency. There has been little movement or little advancement in the lives of the people of the Castries East constituency. So, Madam Speaker,
That's right, brother.
the situation that we have found ourselves in, Madam Speaker, is extremely precarious. And the times that we have found ourselves in are rather dangerous. And so, Madam, and we cannot approach this, Madam Speaker, with adequate for the advancement of the lives of our people. Madam Speaker, the budget exercise that we've just been through, and it was my first budget exercise, it was very, very horrendous to see that we are underfunding the hospitals, that we are underfunding the education system, that what is ideal for sport development in our country, that the country's resources are less than adequate in order to meet the financial burdens or obligations of the various sectors so that we can have proper development of the various sectors. Madam Speaker, that says to me that we have inherited a thing I can say to suggest that we have inherited something that is successful. We've also been accused, Madam Speaker, in his rather incoherent presentation to suggest that we are a tax and spend government. Give me a break. To me, the last or the single largest tax policy or the implementation of an onerous tax in this country has been the value-added tax. And to me, the Minister of Finance was not Alan Shastney, it was the Honourable Member for Vieux Fort South. And so, Madam Speaker, I am saying that we have seen aggressive taxation from them, and we have inherited a situation that we have said and we have promised that we will try to adjust so that we can reduce the burden of this very oppressive, from the words of the Honourable Member for Vieux Fort North, Vieux Fort South, oppressive to the poor. That's how we did. But when he came into government, it became the panacea for economic development. And so, Madam Speaker, I have learned very early in this game that I cannot rely on the narrative that comes from the discussions with the SLHTA as it pertains to the airport development tax and also the increases that we propose on the departure tax. The hotel sector, that we have new in their businesses, significant reduction on their operating costs, so that, Madam Speaker, they will be more competitive and the business, and that's how you run a government, my friend. And so, Madam Speaker, taxes on airlines and passengers and investment, they all come together for a greater good. Madam, I want to, at this time, move forward the Minister of Finance here today. In arrivals and expense board, a 7.3 decline. Now here we are, as they have claimed that we are inheriting a very juicy situation, a successful situation, and the main industry which was supposed to have driven the economy declined by 7.3%. Madam Speaker, the cruise industry had an unprecedented decline of 13.3%. And when we said in June to do something desperately so that we can save the cruise industry, so that we can perhaps reverse the tide, that conveniently forgot to include the statistics which measure cruise arrivals to the destination. And then they indicated that we had a political agenda. But Madam Speaker, our agenda was a St. Lucian agenda. We wanted to see things reverse before it was too late. And so the inevitable happened. There was a 13.2 decline in cruise arrivals. Madam Speaker, more crucially though, we see that the expenditure from visitor arrivals declined by 4.8%. This, Madam Speaker, represents 99.9 million, or somewhere in the region of 100 million. We saw the expenditure that we derive from tourism slipping as a country, Madam Speaker. That is the situation we have inherited. Nothing like success. All we've inherited is bad news, a difficult situation in the circumstances, and here we are struggling to rebuild this country, to bring it back to prosperity so that our people can begin to have some breathing space. Madam Speaker, the tourism industry, however, already in the first 3 months, has shown signs of rebound in the first quarter of 2017 after a dreadful year last year. This is buoyed by a phenomenal increase in cruise tourism. Madam Speaker, the records from SLASPA suggest that we have increased from 245,964 to 552,000, or a 27% increase in cruise arrivals, Madam Speaker. But the figures are important, Madam Speaker, for us to show the role that tourism needs to play so that we can... But of course. But this is very... Tourism is going to drive it, boss. It has a big implication. Anyways, do what you have to do. So, Madam Speaker, the social shows that the industry, and by extension the economy, and by extension our ability to collect more taxes, and by our extension to have a better budget performance, Madam Speaker, is on the rebound, and our chances are a lot better with a 27% increase in cruise arrivals. Madam Speaker, I must tell you that we're also encouraged by a 2% growth in stopover arrivals. And Madam Speaker, the visitors to hotels increased from 97,541 visitors to 99,541 arrivals. That is for the months of January to March. And Madam Speaker, we also saw a very slight increase for the same period. They require much improvement on the revenue side from tourism. In order to attain stronger economic returns from, Madam Speaker, growth in stay-over arrivals is key, as statistics continue to show that land-based tourism generates higher income levels. Madam Speaker, let's consider the year 2016 as a case in point, where a total of 587,749 cruise passengers recorded expenditure in the region of $56.5 million in the guest spend, according to the Social Economic Review. In comparison, Madam Speaker, the same document states that 347,872 stayover passengers recorded a guest spend of a whopping $1,914,500,000, almost $2 billion, Madam Speaker. So we see that, Madam Speaker, there's an average per visitor per guest spend of $96.12, while the stayover arrivals, the visitor per guest spend per day, Madam Speaker, records by the St. Lucia Tourist Board at $647 per visitor per day. So, Madam Speaker, clearly we see that it would require some 7 cruise ship passengers to compensate for the revenue potential of one hotel visitor, confirming the enormous importance of land-based tourism to the economic recovery that we so badly need. Cruise tourism, however, continues to be an important lifeline to the development, rise to the challenge and maximize the growth potential of tourism. Then we are obliged to confront the inconvenient truths and constantly place our policies on trial. Madam Speaker, in the Caribbean region, better fortunes regionally, marginally outpacing the world. While the global tourism growth averaged at 3.9%, Madam Speaker, we see that 4.2, a growth rate of 4.2, Madam Speaker. Your days of being a schoolmaster is over, sir. Thank you. And Madam Speaker, we see that 4.2%, that growth rate, it meant that St. Lucia, Madam Speaker, continues to underperform when compared to the rest of the Caribbean, a point that we made last year when we were campaigning just before the general election, indicating that the island must continue, Madam Speaker, to take a very close look at its tourism marketing, its operations, and to see, Madam Speaker, how best it can derive higher returns from the opportunities that we have to grow and boost tourism. And so, Madam Speaker, we have got to do a number of things, Madam Speaker, to ensure that the tourism sector plays its rightful role in the development of this economy. And so, Madam Speaker, our government has committed and has already started work to the following. Madam Speaker, we will undergo a comprehensive restructuring of the main marketing body of our destination, formerly the St. Lucia Tourist Board, and soon to be announced the St. Lucia Tourism Authority. And I am very excited to hear what the member from Castries East have to say about the authority, because, Madam Speaker, the situation we've inherited again is not mediocre but crisis. Madam Speaker, the former Tourist Board, which we were forced to discontinue, showed that the marketing function of our country, which we rely on to boost economic development and boost growth from tourism, we inherited a very bad financial situation, one that characterized mismanagement, one that characterized corruption in some cases, one, Madam Speaker, where we are left with a hefty bill of $10 million in debt, and it has really stymied the operations of the principal marketing agency of our destination. And so, Madam Speaker, we have had to take and swallow the bitter pill of reconstituting and reorganizing the tourism authority, which will replace the St. Lucia Tourist Board. Madam Speaker, we are undertaking a major rebranding exercise, and what we're doing is breaking hold from the traditional PR companies, the narratives that they present, Madam Speaker, is oftentimes very much similar. And when you look for nuances and you look for uniqueness in the messages, Madam Speaker, to differentiate the destination, it is always very, very, very difficult to find that. And so what we have decided to do, that we will liberate the tourism marketing function of our destination, and we will contract experts in other sectors outside the field of tourism, so that we can maximize the potential for innovation, we can maximize the potential of potency for marketing St. Lucia as a tourism destination. Madam Speaker, to rebound fully, we must negotiate airlift from strategic gateways. And we're looking very carefully at our summer business so that we can end the traditional winter season. So we're looking, Madam Speaker, specifically at the market of Texas, which is a very strategic gateway from which we're talking to a number of airlines so that we can bring about a longer summer and a longer period of arrivals to St. Lucia and heighten our chances for tourism to deliver economically to our economic development. Madam Speaker, we must also stimulate additional investment in our country, something that our friends on the other side failed to do. And we are looking, Madam Speaker, more aggressively at our tourism incentives. And our tourism incentives, we're about to bring a tourism incentive bill to Parliament. And Madam Speaker, we're at a very advanced stage at completing these incentives, which I mentioned earlier, will play a greater role in ensuring that existing businesses also have a more friendly environment or a sustainable environment for their businesses, but also to stimulate interest in the destination of St. Lucia by new investment into the country so that we can get the type of economic momentum that we want. Madam Speaker, the estimates that we're presiding over today, the results, the estimates we're presiding over today, Madam Speaker, the architecture of major tourism institutions to facilitate more efficiencies in the execution of product development, indigenous participation at the level of entrepreneurship, in addition to a robust and innovative policy direction, which our government, Madam Speaker, will implement. There's no ifs, there's no buts, there's no maybe, sir. Madam Speaker, I am also happy to tell you that we, like other Caribbean destinations, are participating in the OECS Regional Tourism Competitive Project to improve on specific infrastructure to aid the competitiveness of the island's tourism industry. But most importantly, and last but not least, I want to also indicate the significant role that our new policy towards the development of tourism and our new policy to not just address these numbers or to give tourism a better chance at helping to grow the economy or to give it that momentum so that we can better get hold of the fiscal situation. But, Madam Speaker, to ensure that tourism plays a greater role in the advancement in the lives of local people. And so we will establish a new agency called Village Tourism Incorporated so that there will be increased participation from the populace, the local population of St. Lucia. And we can, Madam Speaker, leverage the growing and the increasing number of online platforms that are available so that, Madam Speaker, the apartments in rural communities and sites and attractions and communities and villages can also tourism sector. And Madam Speaker, I'm very excited about this own project for my own constituency because, Madam Speaker, they too have a role to make their contribution to improving these numbers that are distrusting all of us here in this house. And so, as parliamentary rep, for the most beautiful constituency, I look forward to showcasing the tourism potential of communities like Ancillary, where efforts are on the way to transform it into a cultural hub, Madam Speaker, where I have gotten the blessings of our Prime Minister to help with the redevelopment of the waterfront and help with the redevelopment of the Ancillary fish fry, which, Madam Speaker, at this time needs some major injection and infusement of resources. Madam Speaker, to maximize the potential of communities like Roseau, with the major beach that is closest to the Castries Harbor, where we hope to establish a day beach destination for cruise ship passengers. Madam Speaker, the Village Tourism Initiative will also help to bolster opportunities for communities like Dennery North and like Viewfort South, but also, Madam Speaker, Millet in my own constituency, where a tremendous adventure destination with its nature trail is already a tourist destination in its own right. Madam Speaker, Village Tourism Incorporated will also help places like Canaries and Castries South and Viewfort North and other places, Madam Speaker, thus giving the entire country that opportunity to participate collectively. Madam Speaker, village tourism will be the hub of branding, it will be the hub of training, it will be the hub of development services for small tourism businesses and concerns throughout our country. And it will help our people to participate in the main economic driver of our economy. Madam Speaker, the outlined above is no easy feat but highly probable. Madam Speaker, it will require all of us summoning a new spirit. It will require, Madam Speaker, that we look at development differently. Madam Speaker, our options are very limited. And so, Madam Speaker, when I hear people talk about the DSH program that is happening, I wonder whether they are afraid or whether they really mean what they say or whether they're trying to construct a political message or whether they have given any serious consideration to the numbers which confront us, which are really showing that St. Lucia's fiscal position is really in dire straits, with the debt stock at the level that it is, and with, Madam Speaker, the GDP growth that is so low. I wonder, Madam Speaker, whether my friends on the opposite side are serious about the undertaking, about the comprehensive economic reform that is important, the new attitude to investment that is required in order, Madam Speaker, for us to adjust these numbers and bring St. Lucia back to a place of fiscal responsibility. I wonder, Madam Speaker, whether it is just politics as usual or whether they really believe in what they say. And sometimes I get disappointed and I ask myself, where is the meat in some of the claims that they make? And then, Madam Speaker, I remember as well that they keep saying that, you know what, we believe in the project, we just want it renegotiated. So that says to me that they are not convinced in their own message, but sort of are desperate to come up. Is there something you want to say about Jafali? But desperate, Madam Speaker, to find their own message to gain political momentum. And so, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the situation before us, and you know, these numbers, Madam Speaker, are so grave, are so grave, Madam Speaker, that that we, Madam Speaker, as a country, as a parliament, must find that new spirit and must find that new approach to investment. And so, Madam Speaker, a comprehensive approach is required, not just what the numbers are in the estimates. I think the people of St. Lucia is center. The people of Castries South deserves and require all of us, Madam Speaker, to ensure that we take a comprehensive look at our respective ministries, at the respective contributions that we have to make to these numbers. And so this debate cannot be confined to the numbers, my friend, but the debate, my friend, we have to look at it holistically. So here we are, Madam Speaker, more double standards from our friends who have failed to curtail their friend from Castries East, who went on and talked about victimization and he didn't quote, I don't know what level of victimization because I didn't hear any figures quoted. But now, after such a mediocre performance, they are trying to deny quality. And they're trying to silence good judgment and sensible governance.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Madam Speaker, as we continue to focus on these numbers, as we continue, Madam Speaker, to look at our respective responsibilities, I also want to talk a bit about the role that the media plays, because, Madam Speaker, the department that I am rising to speak in the context of is the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Services, the tourism. Madam Speaker, that particular heading has been allocated at 47,808,950,000. So, Madam Speaker, I read these numbers not to cower to the opposition, but only to make the point that we don't have an ideal situation. Because, Madam Speaker, as I've said to the Prime Minister, this is not enough money. But the Minister of Finance explained rather clearly, Madam Speaker, that what he has inherited, Madam Speaker, that I would never ever want to find myself in a situation like what he's inherited and what he's had to deal with. And so I decided that, you know what, as a compromise, I have to do my best and I have to be creative and use these inadequate numbers to ensure that I be strategic about the advancement of the responsibilities given to me and the advancement of the Information and Broadcasting Department. So, Madam Speaker, as we seek to come out of this hole that we have found, and my friend said in this hole we're talking about $5 cannot block it. So this hole, Madam Speaker, will require innovation. It will require strategy. It will require, Madam Speaker, every ounce of courage to do things that are new. And so I want to spend some time to talk about the role that the media will play as we seek to advance the cause of nation building and development in our country. Madam Speaker, under the Department of Information and Broadcasting Services, we have the Government Information Service, and we have the Radio St. Lucia Company Limited. Madam Speaker, these two organizations are victims of this rather precarious fiscal situation that confronts us. So when we analyze the media situation, we see that at our St. Lucian story is being told in snippets. It is being told in sound bites. Our nation, therefore, is not being enlightened because media houses are starved for resources. The market is extremely saturated. The advertising revenues have declined and shrunk. And so business has become very difficult for a number of media houses. So I'm not knocking the media houses at all. I know that game all too well. I have been there as a media practitioner myself. But what is at stake here, Madam Speaker, is the role that the media should play in the development of our country. And that role, Madam Speaker, is severely undermined by the business and economic environment in our country that we face as a whole. Therefore, Madam Speaker, the role of enlightening our country and playing a more substantive purpose to information broadcasting for educating our country lies with public broadcasting. And so we have decided, Madam Speaker, that at the GIS, notwithstanding the limited resources which we have inherited, that we will move away and not try to compete with what the private media is already doing. But, Madam Speaker, we will ensure that public broadcasting will find a new meaning and a new purpose, where it will be about enlightening our country so that it can play its rightful role in nation building. And so, Madam Speaker, Radio St. Lucia also is a victim of the budget which we have received. And the capital budget for this year for the department is 33,628,250, and our recurrent is 14,260,700. Madam Speaker, notwithstanding all of this, we have a $3 million debt at Radio St. Lucia. And, Madam Speaker, in order for us to address this situation, it will require every ounce of creativity. There is a report that Cabinet is presiding over, and we'll be making a decision on the future of Radio St. Lucia and GIS and how the two would interface with each other. Madam Speaker, I want to, at this time, leave you with these words, and I want to conclude by supporting the motion by the Minister of Finance, and I want to give my unreserved support to this, Madam Speaker, and I want to as well to posit my strongest appreciation for the difficulties that he has been through, contrary to the success story painted by the Honourable Member for Castries East. Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for your patience, and I thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to address this Honourable House. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Soisel, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for commerce, industry, investment, enterprise development and consumer affairs.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if it's my place to just slight correction. It's always Soisel Saltibus. Yes.
My apologies, sir. Soisel Saltibus.
Can I get the... Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure today to join those before me to make my contribution on this debate, which I believe is the most important policy document of the government of the plans for the next 12 months to stimulate the domestic economy through its public sector investment policy, to support the private sector through business environment and tax policy reforms, and address the needs of as many disadvantaged and vulnerable persons as possible through income redistribution programs. Madam Speaker, since this is my maiden voyage and first opportunity to participate in this budget exercise, I wish to seek your leave and beg your indulgence to allow some latitude for me to give thanks. Because I want to give thanks to the Almighty for waking me up today and providing me with just enough strength, health, wisdom, and patience for daily living. I would like to give thanks to my family and friends for their support, love, and nourishment. And Madam Speaker, last but not least, to give thanks to the constituents of Choiseul Saltibus for their emphatic decision in electing me as a parliamentary representative and providing me with the opportunity to serve in this ministry responsible for the critical departments of enterprise development and consumer affairs, areas which I believe impact their lives daily. I wish to tell them, Madam Speaker, that I promise to dedicate service with their best interest in my decision making. And Madam Speaker, when this House convenes, I think in the next 2 weeks, to debate the policy position, I will provide details of what my community can expect to benefit from this financial year. Madam Speaker, before I go into the gist of my contribution, I must commend the Minister of Tourism for what I believe was an eloquent presentation on the matters in his ministry. Unlike the previous Minister of Tourism, who continuously made mention when he was Minister of Tourism on telephone bills. But Madam Speaker, you know, it is not my personality, and I had promised myself in going into politics I would not get involved in the halikasi, you know. But I want to make mention to the leader of the opposition that if it's one thing he said, which is true in his presentation, and I would like to quote him, Madam Speaker, because I actually took a note of it. He actually said that, yes, it is difficult to raise money on the bond market. That's a fact. And that is, Madam Speaker, something we must not lose sight of, because this is the premise on which this budget was formulated, Madam Speaker, to build this economy to a position where investors will have confidence to purchase our bonds. Madam Speaker, the estimates today, they follow one basic yet fundamental rule, and that is you cannot spend more than you earn. I wish to applaud the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance because I believe he has approached this budget process very differently. A difference, I believe, and I dare say, we lay the foundation for a more stable economy. The budget is not about being expedient or to achieve short-term gains, but you see, Madam Speaker, there are signs around the region where people follow the business-as-usual attitude, and now the foundation is crumbling. We need to take stock of that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, your spending and actions must make economic sense. And we should not just follow, but we need to question. Should we continue to just bury our heads in the sun and exposing our vulnerabilities? Madam Speaker, the sad reality is that we know exactly what the problem is and what has to be done to fix it. But we are so comforted in our temporary luxuries, we keep fooling the people to maintain our place around the table. Madam Speaker, I want to use an analogy to describe what we are faced with and what we have to deal with. I'm sure you're very familiar with the ficus plant. I know you love plants, Madam Speaker. And around St. Lucia, the ficus plant is used to decorate yards and create fences. But this ficus plant have a very razor slim root, Madam Speaker. And that ficus plant can destroy your foundation. So as much as you see the beauty of the ficus plant creating a hedge, it can destroy your foundation. And it chokes up septic tanks and it causes a stench. And you know the smell, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure if I can use the word caca in this house, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, I'll say it in English. Madam Speaker, there is a saying that if it ain't broken, why fix it? Well, Madam Speaker, that's the illusion that has been sold to our citizenry. And most of the time, people will follow the tone set at the top. You can ask the banks, Madam Speaker, and they will tell you how many people in our society live above their means. We are very broke. And when the PM advised that any new borrowing must have its own revenue stream, I realized that this was a leader serious on changing the status quo. The first statement from the PM when my ministry was making our budget presentation was to defend your budget. So whether it was 70,000, 700,000, 7 million or 700 million, you had to prove beyond doubt that it was critical for the effective operations and work programs of the unit. It is my understanding that the PM was consistent across the board with the process. And so, Madam Speaker, in my contribution today, I will be giving a summary of the achievements of the Department of Commerce, International Trade, Investment in Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs. That summary will be over the last 10 months, bearing in mind that I inherited a budget which automatically framed the nature and scope of the interventions that could realistically have been undertaken. I will also provide this Honourable House a sense of the challenges and constraints that we have faced as we endeavour to improve on the performance of the private sector and outline the interventions that we will be pursuing in this new financial year. Madam Speaker, St. Lucia is defined as a small economy. And as a result, all the key elements that can be deployed to assist the growth of the private sector are circumscribed by the external trading environment. To put it simply, if we fail to ensure that our tariff rates on bread, for instance, are not placed at the appropriate level, then our local bakers might very well find themselves facing undue competition. While they may not be exporters of bread, but their very own livelihoods can be affected by international trade, in this case, importation of bread. Or for instance, if we fail to have an effective trade licensing regime, our up-and-coming graphic designers or architects may find themselves competing in their own country with a multinational corporation established in St. Lucia and offering graphic design and architectural service. A trade license regulates what companies we are allowed to establish and invest in St. Lucia and those we keep out. This, Madam Speaker, is a right and privilege that all countries enjoy, and hence the reason why countries engage in negotiations of investment agreements to guarantee specific rights from each other. Therefore, Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the non-allocation of a specific budget to the International Trade Unit in the 2016-2017 budget to complete St. Lucia's market access offer in the CARICOM-Cuba Trade Agreement, submit all WTO notifications due for the period under review, submit the instrument of acceptance for the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, which came into force on February 22nd, 2017, St. Lucia's Independence Day. They were also able to coordinate efforts at the national level to ensure compliance with WTO provisions as it relates to notification of relevant new and existing trade policies or programs. They were able to secure capacity building and training for stakeholders to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of St. Lucia's intra-regional trading agreements. They were also able to complete the preparation of a memo for protocol amending the WTO trade-related intellectual property rights, the TRIMS agreement. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I wish to employ my ministry for work well done. In this new financial year, given the new alignment of international trade under the department responsible for enterprise development, the unit will benefit from financial resources to undertake much of its work program. So, Madam Speaker, along with the regular work program of the unit, emphasis will be placed on implementing the TFA. Developing countries like St. Lucia that wish to benefit from flexibilities in this agreement must move speedily to implement the provisions to facilitate trade within an 18-month period. Cabinet will therefore reactivate the National Trade Facilitation Committee, which will be responsible for coordinating the acquisition of technical assistance and capacity building support from donor countries. In addition, the International Trade Unit will engage in a comprehensive public education program aimed at the transfer of knowledge and information on international trade to relevant private and public sector partners. The whole idea is to help the business community understand the opportunities, challenges, and threats that the various international trade regime poses to them, and hence place them in a position to develop the appropriate strategies to respond. The public education program will also attempt to get governments, departments, and agencies to more systematically factor St. Lucia's international trade arrangements into the design of their work, so that greater advantage is taken of the provisions of these agreements. I wish to speak to the micro and small enterprise development. Madam Speaker, having established, albeit in a very brief manner, the role of international trade in shaping our domestic economic space, I will first speak to the product development initiatives that we have embarked upon and intend to implement in this new financial year to build the competitiveness of our private sector. I will subsequently address the reform measures aimed at creating a more efficient and conducive environment of the private sector. And I will finally address the support measures that we intend to introduce to help our enterprise maximize the opportunities. Therefore, Madam Speaker, in terms of actions undertaken aimed at building the competitiveness of the private sector, I will first focus on the micro and small enterprise sector, since this sector comprises of 75% of enterprises in St. Lucia and is one of the largest employment sectors and serves as a base from which St. Lucian companies will grow to make their mark in the global marketplace and continue the path-breaking tradition well established by our global luminaries, Sir Arthur Lewis and Honorable Derek Walcott. We might be from a very small country, Madam Speaker, but once the opportunity presented itself, we have demonstrated that we have the capacity to be the best on the global stage. I will digress shortly just to make a mention of one of the statements made by the Governor General in a throne speech, where she commended the under-15 team from St. Lucia for winning the Windward Islands under-15 competition, Madam Speaker. And I think we need to commend, because it is not the first time, and I don't think it will be the last time. In fact, Madam Speaker, Choiseul was very well represented on that team in the person of Mr. Sky Lafay. Well done. My community also has, on several occasions, been responsible for the high output of cricket in St. Lucia, either under 15, under 19, or even on West Indies youth program. And that is why I have continuously reminded the Minister of Youth and Sports the importance of ensuring the budget for sports in particular in the various communities is strong and vibrant. Back to the business of the Commerce Department. The department has in place a new model on how to engage micro and small enterprises. The Small Business Development Center, as we know, SBDC, is spearheaded by the Small Enterprise Development Unit, SEDU. Ever since SEDU has interchanged either as the SPDC or the SEDU. The primary advantage of using the SPDC model is as a means of delivering services to the micro and small enterprises sector are as follows. It uses a tier system of classifying enterprises and hence tailor different types of assistance to the relevant class in which the enterprise falls. It has dedicated training it has dedicated trained business counselors assigned to each business and sector. It coordinates the inputs of other stakeholders such as financial institutions, academia, and research in the development of enterprise. It has an online tracking system that measures the level of effort and inputs dedicated to any enterprise or sector, and is able to correlate this to the performance of the individual enterprise or sector. In that way, Madam Speaker, the growth path of the particular business is monitored and appropriate interventions can be introduced in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, the next step which is currently being implemented is to have the same system implemented throughout the Enterprise Development Division of the Ministry. In that way, the Tier 3 and 4 businesses, that is those firms that are either near to exporting or exporting companies, will receive interventions appropriate to their level, which will be monitored and evaluated. Madam Speaker, in the 2016-2017 financial year, 798 clients access SEDU services, a 19% increase over the previous year. Of the number that use SEDU services, the top 3 sectors from which they came were services, which is 65%, retail 19%, and manufacturing 8%. There were 638 business name registrations, of which 81% were sole proprietors and 19% partnerships. Through the management advisory services, a number of clients were able to launch their businesses, including the client who won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. This year's Chamber of Commerce in January, Madam Speaker, Mr. Johanan Dujon, owner of Algas Organics, another client of SEDU. Mr. Randolph Roseman, owner of Edge Designs, was also able to win a grant and training award worth $20,000 through the Chamber's Business Awards held in January this year. In addition, Madam Speaker, we assisted a number of other successful businesses such as Enchanted Kettle, Mellis Mix It Up, Alex Shaved Ice, and HRM Solutions, Inc. Madam Speaker, dream for young entrepreneurs, I was laughed and scoffed at. But Madam Speaker, it is very important, and I am certain that during the tenure of this administration, we will ensure that we build these business incubators, because despite the contrary, Madam Speaker, despite what is being said out there, there are several young entrepreneurs alive and well in St. Lucia, and we have to help them reach their full potential. Through the outreach programs of SEDU, aimed at visiting at least one community per month, over the periods January to March of this year, the communities of Soufrière, Vieux-Fort, and Gros-Islet were visited, reaching 65 aspiring and existing entrepreneurs. In addition, over 145 participants attended a seminar organized in conjunction with the Royal Bank of Canada to promote e-commerce and related products to micro and small enterprises. In November of last year, SEDU also partnered with TIPA for Business Month. SEDU led the second annual finance symposium, which focused on attracting investors. Over 100 local entrepreneurs participated and had the opportunity to meet with potential investors and financing agencies. In terms of developing its networking capacity and building strategic alliances, SEDU partnered with the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association to open its membership to the SPDC clients at a concessionary rate. In addition, 6 SPDC clients got the opportunity to display their products at the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association trade show, which is hosted every year during the AGM. In terms of some of the strategic activities that will engage SEDU or SPDC during this new fiscal year, the following will be embarked upon. In terms of policy, we will work to complete the micro, small, and medium enterprise policy. This is especially important as we embark on the development of a new private sector development strategy. As it pertains to providing technical support, we intend to build capacity and provide area on financial management, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at this point, I must share with the House the news that through collaboration with the ECCB, the Savings Bank Foundation for International Cooperation, a German organization, we will be working in close collaboration with the Department of Commerce. the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, and some other financial institutions. They will all come together to help us build capacity to our local institutions. This is over a 7-year period, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is no secret that one of the biggest challenges for businesses is access to funding. It is one of the biggest hurdles faced by businesses in their quest to establish and expand. Hence, Madam Speaker, any initiative that can lead to improvements in access to finance will be pursued by this government. In that regard, a training of trainers workshop for financial management will be conducted here in collaboration with the Savings Bank Foundation over the period July 3rd to 4th, 2017. Madam Speaker, another area that must be better understood in order to assist our businesses is value chain analysis. In that regard, over the period May 16th to 19th, the Department of Commerce, in collaboration with the OECS, will host the Global Value Chain Analysis Workshop. This has a research component spanning 1 year. This is sponsored by the OECS and facilitated by Duke University. Of course, Madam Speaker, the usual support rendered by SEDU will continue throughout the financial year. Madam Speaker, with respect to how we have interfaced with the medium and large businesses in the economy, our approach has been that of diagnosing the issues hindering growth and stifling competitiveness at the firm and sector levels. Through the use of incentives, we will boost competitiveness and expand both plant and range of products, reforming processes within government that negatively impact company efficiency. Madam Speaker, in the area of advocacy, using accepted international trade measures to provide domestic advantage for St. Lucian enterprises while seeking market presence where St. Lucia in foreign markets, and supporting enterprises reach their target markets through both domestic market promotion and export support. Madam Speaker, I will speak to institutional strengthening. Madam Speaker, with respect to institutional strengthening, the Department of Commerce, in collaboration with the Caribbean Development Bank, through the Caribbean Technology Consultancy Services Network, conducted workshops in the areas of management for development results, MFDR. This was targeted at business support agencies. Over 20 participants from agencies such as the Bureau of Standard, the James Belgrave Fund, the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Junior Achievers Program, St. Lucia Industrial and Small Business Association, the St. Lucia Coalition of Services, and the St. Lucia Development Bank, among others, received training to improve their knowledge and understanding the key MFDR tools based on the international best practice that businesses development institutions such as TIPA. Madam Speaker, a training program on the use of the computerized management accounting systems, QuickBooks, was conducted with the assistance from the CDB, CTC for 23 persons. Greater knowledge was gained on how to use the system to generate financial reports and information. Support was also given to the St. Lucia Fashion Council, which seeks to provide an avenue for all stakeholders within the fashion industry to come together through an apex body for fashion design in St. Lucia. It shall represent the interests of all stakeholders in the supply chain and guide the development of the fashion-related industries. Cabinet approved the establishment of the apex body named the St. Lucia Fashion Council, the first in the region. Madam Speaker, it is an accepted fact that not all countries equal in terms of availability of natural resources, domestic population size, and level of development, just to name a few variables. Hence, special measures have been made available to assist such disadvantaged countries taking part in international trade. Within the regional framework of the CARICOM single market economy, St. Lucia has the provisions under Article 164 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas to provide a certain degree of protection for the growth of certain goods that we have the capacity to produce. Madam Speaker, St. Lucia will seek to identify other goods that can be placed under the Article 164 regime to provide even more opportunity for expansion of market share in both the domestic and regional markets. Marketing and promotion. The Department of Commerce, Madam Speaker, in partnership with the Embassy of the Republic of China, Taiwan, organized the 9th St. Lucia Taiwan Partnership Trade Show. Madam Speaker, this saw 60 local and 9 Taiwanese exhibitors at the Johnson Center in Rodney Bay. This trade show took place in November 2016. Madam Speaker, this trade show highlighted a wide range of goods and services from both St. Lucia and Taiwan, and it has been designed to propel government efforts towards a Buy Lucian drive. The emphasis to support local goods and services is critical at this time, given the need to support growth and expand outputs in the rail sector. Based on feedback from the St. Lucia Taiwan Partnership, participants now have an opportunity to generate sales at pop-up shops established at the Bay Gardens Hotel. Approximately 60% of the local participants gain access to new markets. At least 2 Taiwanese participants have confirmed their interest to attend the 2017 trade show. In fact, Madam Speaker, 1 Taiwanese participant was in negotiation with a St. Lucian businessman to serve as an agent or distributor. Madam Speaker, in an effort to promote St. Lucian products in the region and international market, TIPA in March this year conducted the first ever Specialty Caribbean Expo. And there were 155 participants, 70 from St. Lucia and the remaining 85 from the OECS. There were 30 regional buyers. Notwithstanding the large number of St. Lucians who visited the trade show, Madam Speaker, there were 20 major local buyers. The expo, Madam Speaker, led to a common space to showcase OECS exports. It provided an opportunity for networking among buyers, sellers, and other participants, and led to positive leads and secured potential and established exporters. Madam Speaker, in terms of the UK market, the Taste of St. Lucia campaign continued with the products from 6 firms featured at the themed event held in Yorkshire. One local company, namely Viking Traders, traveled to participate in this event. TIPA was successful in mobilizing the participation of 2 buyers who attended the Specialty Caribbean Expo in March this year, coming out of that Taste St. Lucia campaign. There were 2 other activities, Madam Speaker, that focused on penetrating the UK market. One was the Burton Agnes Jazz and Blues Festival, which was held in June 2016 in the United Kingdom. And Madam Speaker, in that expo, there were local scouts. And I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that 10 local artists participated in this event. The Scouts selected 7 of the 10 artists to participate in the Jazz Festival. TIPA is currently in discussion with the first 4 acts to mobilize their participation in the event. Confirmation of the other 3 acts is awaiting funding. The work of at least 3 local artists and 1 sculptress will be showcased in the venue gallery for a period of 2 to 3 months with the option to sell. Madam Speaker, as regards to the Canadian market, TIPA continues to benefit from the Trade Facilitation Office of our Canadian Responsive Facility. The Responsive Facility is an initiative under the Canadian Market Access and Capacity Building Service Program implemented by Trade Facilitation Office Canada. This office provides technical assistance and financial support to support our trade support institutions. This includes embassies, trade offices, consulates, and bilateral chambers of commerce in Canada. 2 of our exporters, namely NatMed and Baron Foods, participated in information sharing webinars conducted by the TFO. In addition, Madam Speaker, TIPA had an officer attached to the consulate office in Toronto during the period of June to August 2016 to investigate, explore, and expand on opportunities. In terms of the United States market, the St. Lucia Take It With You marketing and promotion campaign continued. TIPA has been working with 8 domestic firms from 3 sectors to provide an avenue to promote their products and services and secure importers. Madam Speaker, an examination of the composition of the GDP of our country will reveal that over 86% of the total value of goods and services produced by us in any calendar year is made up of services. Further, Madam Speaker, of the total value of our exports, over 88% constitute exports of services. Most of the employment created in this country is in the service sector. Paying attention to the service sector must therefore be a priority of this government. Madam Speaker, a draft service policy strategy and action plan has been completed with the assistance of the Caribbean Development Bank. And the strategy identifies 4 broad services sectors as priority and lists a number of interventions that must be undertaken to transform the services sector. These interventions range from establishing certain joint government and private sector governance structures for the sector in order for them to develop a separate incentive regime dedicated to the service sector. We have already prepared a memorandum to Cabinet, and we expect to have the first policy strategy and action plan to be approved by Cabinet within the first quarter of the new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, creating an environment conducive for the establishment and growth of businesses, which, whether domestic or foreign, is one of the key determinants of economic growth and development. As such, Madam Speaker, this government has paid careful attention to the report on how easy and efficient it is to conduct business in St. Lucia. In fact, Madam Speaker, numerous studies have shown that investors are more interested in the ease with which they are able to invest and conduct business in a country, the quality and the aptitude of the workforce, the reliability of the infrastructure, such as electricity, water, as the key determinants, as opposed to simply the receipt of incentives and in establishing a new business. As a result, Madam Speaker, this administration has made reforming the business environment a significant priority to attract new business investment and reposition St. Lucia as the #1 place to do business in the Caribbean. Notwithstanding the program already approved for reforming the business environment, this administration has moved to strengthen the policy input in driving the reform agenda by constituting a subcommittee of Cabinet comprising of 4 ministers, chaired by myself, to oversee the reform agenda on doing business in St. Lucia. We have in place an Ease of Doing Business Task Force, which is a technical team of public and private persons, chaired by my PS and charged with the responsibility of implementing the Cabinet-approved reform agenda. And so, Madam Speaker, I can report of some of the notable achievements of the department. The capability now for online payment of taxes, replacement of the exit note or release order required by the Customs and Excise Department to allow the entry of goods into St. Lucia by an electronic release, completion of the draft bankruptcy and insolvency bill, the commercial division of the High Court, which continues to effectively educate on commercial matters. Ongoing stakeholder consultations have been held with the Bar Association, accountants, government and quasi-governmental agencies. A national forum was held only last month to take stock of our achievements and prioritize this area. 2 critical areas of focus for us include the establishment of a single window to improve on trade facilitation and registering property. Madam Speaker, the Trade License Act is the only WTO-compliant tool that is available to us in this country to regulate what type of foreign investment and investor that is allowed to establish and conduct business in St. Lucia. This is a critical piece of legislation as it makes the difference between anyone in the world simply coming here and establishing any type of business. And as I said, from a bakery to opening a craft shop in Choiseul and competing with St. Lucians. It is part of the process that is used to allow for objective screening of investors to minimize the damage that investments, such as the infamous Lumbers Academy, can have on the reputation of St. Lucia as a place for doing business. However, Madam Speaker, this piece of legislation needs modernizing. And so the administration of the trade license regime was reviewed in December 2016. The report indicated that there are a number of inherent weaknesses that must be urgently addressed to more effectively administer the regime. These include strengthening dispute settlements and appeals, introducing a more robust enforcement and monitoring regime, and introducing regulations to give greater transparency. Work, Madam Speaker, is now complete, and the draft amendment to the Act and the internal review have been completed, and the list of areas reserved for nationals has been updated in keeping with our international trade obligations. Madam Speaker, allow me to speak a little bit on Invest St. Lucia, which falls under my portfolio. Madam Speaker, even while we undertake reforms to improve on the business climate in St. Lucia, we have been working assiduously to attract, facilitate, and retain foreign investments. Through Invest St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia signed a multi-billion-dollar framework, which is the DSH, and I'm sure, Madam Speaker, we will hear a lot more of that during the budget process, the budget debate. Invest St. Lucia is working closely with the Citizen by Investment Unit as it relates to accessing the proposals of prospective investors, which forms part of the application and approval process for under the Citizen by Investment program. ISL, Madam Speaker, is currently in process with several strategic partners to undertake the redevelopment of duty-free point Seraphim. ISL has also completed the relocation of all unauthorized occupiers on the lands at Auger and Sabuisha in Choiseul, thereby making it possible for major development, hotel development by the GP Group. In the process, the discomfort caused to students and teachers at the Auger Combined School by the livestock and poultry farmers have been addressed. Madam Speaker, ISL has invested significantly in the construction of a new road at duty-free point Seraphim. This will assist with the traffic congestion on cruise ship days. The new road, which has been constructed in collaboration with the Ministry of Infrastructure, will also assist with the seamless dispatch of land-based stores. Madam Speaker, the area of standards is one of the most important areas for both private sector development and protection of consumers. Standards, quality assurance, accreditation, and metrology are the foundations on which purchasers, supplier, and technical regulation implementation is based. Developing countries such as St. Lucia can only enter the global market and have competitive products and services if they have implemented aspects of the SQUAM infrastructure. This infrastructure must, at the very least, ensure access to international standards and technical regulations, guarantee reliable measurements, and set up a system that will allow accreditation of their testing and certification facilities in such a way that the results of these bodies will be internationally accepted. Madam Speaker, let me just speak to some of the work of the Bureau, and also to commend them, Madam Speaker, because this year the Bureau became the holder of the ISO 901-2015 International Standard Certificate, which is a great achievement and the only one within our region, Madam Speaker. The conferring of this standard is based on the Bureau, means that the organization has demonstrated the standard where customers' needs and regulatory requirements are met consistently, and there are systems in place for business continuity and improve efficiency in this process. Madam Speaker, in the area of consumer protection, the Consumer Affairs Division is responsible for promoting consumer interests and welfare and competition law and policy. During the period under review, weekly visits are made to shops, distribution outlets, supermarkets, and all business houses. 100 shops were surveyed throughout the island, and 5 book surveys were conducted at 6 outlets throughout the island. 8 cement surveys were conducted at 23 outlets, and 4 field surveys were conducted for agricultural input. The department received 33 complaints, 29 or 88% were resolved. The value of the cases resolved amounted to $19,682. Madam Speaker, I want to report that the department conducted 2 special surveys. One, a survey which examined the level of satisfaction of consumers on the quality and price of consumer cable and internet purchase in St. Lucia. This survey was conducted, Madam Speaker, in light of 2 local providers merging. A survey of consumer perception of the relevance of price control in St. Lucia was also conducted. The objective of the second activity was to ascertain whether the price control mechanism was relevant in this era when the world is being liberalized.
Honourable Member, you have 15 more minutes within which to complete your presentation.
I will be done within a time, Madam Speaker. The findings revealed for Survey 1.
Madam Speaker, I know I'm enjoying the Honourable Member's contribution. I just want to remind you of
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah?
You are interrupting a member. Are you standing on a point of order?
Just for the future, Madam Speaker, the member is going on very well, but I just want to tell him that he is raising matters of general principle. It's not the estimates, but what you're doing is good. It's a little different, but I just remind you for the future.
I'm not hearing you.
6410, signed on 6410. It says that on the report on the Stein Finance Committee we adopted, members may raise points as specific details of heads of expenditure in the report, but may not raise any matters of general principle. Just want to enlighten you on that.
I always appreciate. But Madam Speaker,
Honourable Member, the member for Castries East is actually correct, and it's something that I've noticed. And yes, I would want to bring it to attention of the House now that it is brought up that 6410 under the motion, the debate on the motion, it will be as to specific heads on the estimates, please. And we need to at least keep the debate on that. Specific heads under this. So, members, please bear that in mind. Please continue, member for Swizzell Saltimus.
thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I understand the rules of the House, but sometimes it is important to, to ensure that your point is driven home, so you have to expound a little. But I understand the objection.
But are you asking me to explain a little further?
So, Madam Speaker, I sought to provide a sort of a condensed report of 2016-2017, and Madam Speaker, the information that going forward, Madam Speaker, I wish to first thank the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for making the financial allocation that he has towards the development of the private sector. In terms of the approach that will be adopted to reposition the economy to place the private enterprise as a driving force for growth and expansion, the following approach will be pursued. Madam Speaker, given that the information remains the most powerful tool for influencing change, and given the fact that St. Lucia is very dependent on trade, increase technical knowledge of stakeholders on trade issues so that a better feedback could be obtained from them. Madam Speaker, assist the private sector in taking advantage of market opportunities for export goods and services. Provision was also made, Madam Speaker, to serve as in terms of our awareness drive, Madam Speaker, to serve as a vehicle to attract foreign direct investment into St. Lucia, preferably through partnership joint venture arrangements, and help mainstream trade issues in the planning exercise of both government and the private sector. In terms of improving the business environment, work will focus on implementing the ease of doing business strategy. Specifically, attention will be placed on establishing a single window for trade facilitation in keeping with St. Lucia's commitments under the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, and completing phase 1 of the project aimed at improving registering property in St. Lucia, and the development of modern secure transactions law and collateral registry as aspects of making it easier to get credit. In an effort to support the reforms, Madam Speaker, that will be undertaken in the business environment, a number of supporting policies will be implemented. Madam Speaker, first off, it is the intention of my department to develop a new private sector development strategy. The existing holistic policy document, which addresses private sector development, is the Industrial Development Policy, which is as old as 2001. Clearly, Madam Speaker, a lot has changed since then, and it is time for a fresh look at what strategic path that the private sector should entail. A new national export development strategy should be completed within this fiscal year. The existing strategy, which was developed in 2004, needs revising, and work has commenced, Madam Speaker, with technical and financial support from the International Trade Center. Financial support has also been sought from the Caribbean Development Fund. A new incentive regime for the manufacturing sector will be introduced, Madam Speaker. This regime will seek to ensure that all approved enterprises benefit from fiscal incentives upon establishment for a specified period of time. Thereafter, additional incentives will be determined by a range of criteria, which technology, additional expansion, provision to staff, among others areas. This, Madam Speaker, is important given the level of dependence of St. Lucia's economy on the service sector. So, Madam Speaker, we are also going to develop a policy, strategy, and action plan for the service sector. Madam Speaker, it is a known fact that the private sector in developing countries such as St. Lucia requires all the assistance that can be obtained in order to compete and survive in this liberalized environment. As a result, Madam Speaker, government has provided a financial allocation that will focus on product and market development, a Buy St. Lucian campaign, a development of the fashion industry, and implementation of this strategy and action plan for the service sector. In addition, specific sector studies will be undertaken to better understand the core constraints facing the sector, so that a determination can be made of the types of intervention that can be implemented. As I approach the end of my contribution, Madam Speaker, and as we look forward in the area of consumer protection, it is my intention to implement strategies that will promote through enforcement of consumer protection legislation and competition law and policy. Madam Speaker, there has been a bit of delay in giving a commencement date for the Consumer Protection Act. But this was due, Madam Speaker, to ensuring that a few stakeholders were taken aboard in the new Act. A commencement date will therefore be given shortly, paving the way for the establishment of the Consumer Protection Board and a Consumer Complaints Tribunal. Work, Madam Speaker, will continue at the level of the OECS with respect to the appropriate institutional arrangement to best serve the competition requirements of the sub-region. Finally, Madam Speaker, I wish to express my gratitude to my Permanent Secretary and the staff of my Department of Commerce, the members and boards of the statutory agencies which fall under my direction, for the support and advice that has been given to me over the last 10 months. I am indeed blessed with a professional and a competent team of persons to work with. I must also thank the various business support organizations, such as the St. Lucia Manufacturing Association, the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, the Coalition of Services, and SLISBA for their frank discussions that we have had and for their support. I look forward to working with all of them as we move forward to making St. Lucia the best place to live, work and conduct business. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member for Mico South, Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and Public Service.
Madam Speaker, I ask for leave for suspension of the House. Beg to move that there be a suspension of the House for 1 hour for dinner.
Honourable Member.
Sorry, from 6 o'clock until 7 o'clock.
Members, the quest stands suspended until 7 p.m. Put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This House